Chapter 923. Right now, he was someone who possessed the most outstanding innate conditions, yet everyone still wanted to give him the most room to grow. Because no matter what, the Misty Mansion would never be willing to sacrifice this free and natural physique possessor. It was almost certain that in the near future, this person would definitely possess absolute strength, as well as a certain level of intelligence. He would also have his own bottom line, and would definitely not be manipulated by anyone. Such a unique existence was naturally someone that no one wanted to provoke. If anyone were to accidentally provoke him, they would probably not be able to sleep peacefully for the entire day and night. This was the most terrifying thing. Facing such a dangerous person, who would not be able to befriend him. Since it was destined that they would not be able to bask in his glory, nor could they kill him prematurely, then they could only make sure that they did not suffer any losses from him. That was already the best outcome. From another perspective, this was another layer of value. At this moment, the way that Miao Xiao Miao looked at June Moxie had undergone a fundamental change. From a slightly cautious look to a cautious and serious one. This Mo Jun Yi was not only not an ordinary person, he was also someone who would definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Furthermore, he was extremely daring and had a temperament that did not care about anything. This kind of person was extremely frightening and difficult to deal with. If there was no need, or if there was no guarantee of killing him with a single blow, it was best not to offend him. Especially with the potential that he possessed, he would definitely become an important figure in the Misty Mansion in the near future. June Moxie had only spoken a single sentence in front of Miao Xiao Miao. Up till now, he had not spoken another word, not even glancing at her from the corner of his eyes. But in Miao Xiao Miao's heart, June Daxiao's image had already rapidly changed 4 times. A total of 4 times. From the initial image of a country bumpkin, to the current extremely dangerous and important figure, the entire process had only taken an instant. The speed at which the impression changed could be said to be godly. In just a few words, June Moxie had completely overturned their original impression of him. Gu Feiyu still held his sword upright, his eyes bloodshot. Although he was still pointing his sword at June Moxie's throat, it looked like he, who had the upper hand, was like a phoenix that had shed its feathers and had fallen into a heavy downpour. He was in an extremely sorry state. His body seemed to be standing straight, but it was actually trembling slightly. His eyes were filled with confusion and wildness, and the killing intent that emanated from his body seemed to have solidified in one moment, then scattered in the next, then condensed again, scattered again. In this repeated process, the cold sweat on Gu Feiyu's forehead converged into a stream and flowed down continuously. "Don't force me! Don't force me! Don't force me to kill you!" Gu Feiyu's lips trembled, and he looked fiercely at June Moxie. But no matter how fierce his gaze was now, in the eyes of others, it was clearly a pleading look. June Moxie's gaze was even calmer and deeper, without the slightest fluctuation. He just looked at Gu Feiyu quietly, but in Gu Feiyu's eyes, this unusually calm gaze made him especially flustered and lose his confidence. He felt that the other party's calm gaze was like 2 sharp arrows that shot straight into the depths of his soul, causing him to completely collapse from the bottom of his heart, and he was completely at a loss. "I want to force you, so why aren't you making a move? Make a move and kill me. You trash. Kill me, you idiot. Why, could it be that you've never killed anyone before? You actually don't dare to make a move? You cowardly bandit." June Moxie laughed coldly, unscrupulously mocking this person who was second to not be provoked. His gaze suddenly became as sharp as a knife, and he stared intently at Gu Feiyu's eyes. "Tell me, what else can you do? You're a good-for-nothing. Why, you only know how to be jealous? You don't know how to kill? Ha 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 ha!" A series of long, mocking, and disdainful laughter rang out. "Ah!" Gu Feiyu roared, and his body trembled even more violently. The endless hatred in his eyes almost solidified. He gritted his teeth, but his right hand, which was tightly gripping his sword, retracted a little. Jun Moxie straightened his body, and took another step forward. Gu Feiyu retracted his arm again, but found that he could no longer retract it. His elbow was almost forming an inverted triangle with his body, and he could no longer retract it. He had no choice but to take a step back. But after he took this step back, he heard a bang, and found that his back had already knocked against the wall. He turned his face in shock, and unexpectedly found that he had already been forced into a corner by this Mo Junyi in front of him. There was no longer any room for him to retreat. If he still had to forcefully retreat, he could only directly punch through the hotel wall behind him. 17 steps. Miao Xiaomiao looked at the two people in front of her in shock, and thought to herself, this Mo Junyi is really powerful. He actually allowed the sword to be pointed at his throat, and forced the person holding the sword to retreat 17 times, step by step. 17 steps. Does he not want his life? Or is he really so confident? Even if he is confident, he shouldn't be pressing forward step by step. He actually dared to press forward step by step. One must know that there is a limit to a person's endurance. If Gu Feiyu couldn't bear it and had a mental breakdown, it's normal for him to stab forward without any care. It's not impossible. Let's not talk about what will happen to the Gu clan in the end, but the one who will suffer first is still himself. Could this person be a fugitive who doesn't care about his life at all? Is there really such a person in the world? Miao Xiaomiao thought suspiciously as she looked at Jun Moxie. Young Miss Miao was undoubtedly an intelligent person. However, it was a pity that even someone as intelligent as her had overlooked a possibility. If this Mo Junyi in front of her had already transcended the mortal realm and entered the saintly realm, then he would not have cared about the treasured sword at his throat at all. But this possibility was too unimaginable, and it was normal to overlook it. However, among the series of events that had just happened, which one of them wasn't inconceivable? From the start, the free and natural physique, that hadn't appeared for at least 10,000 years, suddenly reappeared in the world, and directly appeared in front of Chao Guofeng and Holy Emperor Chao. Then, the Holy Emperor from the Holy Emperor dared to launch a sneak attack at midnight, causing Mo Junyi to go missing. Then, he sent back young Master Mo, who was heavily injured and on the verge of death, and set up a trap to kill Chao Guofeng and the rest of the 7 holy emperors. And now, a country bumpkin whose abilities were so weak that they could be ignored could completely ignore the sharp sword at his throat, and even put pressure on the person who had drawn the sword. Of all these, which one of them was more normal? At this moment, Gu Feiyu only had one feeling, shame and shame. As a dignified third-grade expert of Xinxian, the most outstanding representative of the younger generation of the Misty Mansion, he was actually forced to such a state by a country bumpkin who had just come out from the ravine. Especially when he noticed Miao Xiaomiao's disdainful gaze, it made him feel even more humiliated. Since 5 years ago, when Miao Xiaomiao was 14 years old, he had started to pursue her, all the way until now. Or rather, he could completely ignore the gazes of others. Even the disdain of the entire misty, illusory manor was something that he could ignore. But from Miao Xiaomiao's disdain, even if it was just a little bit, it was enough to make him wish he was dead. He was humiliated in front of the woman he loved the most, who was also the woman he was pursuing with all his might. No one would be able to take it, not to mention someone as proud and arrogant as Gu Feiyu. At the start, he was still thinking about how to humiliate Mo Junyi, but he didn't expect the other party to take advantage of his weakness and chase after him. He didn't even have the time to think of a countermeasure. He only knew that the other party was the owner of the free and natural physique. It wasn't a problem for him to use words to attack or even humiliate him, but he definitely couldn't hurt him, not to mention kill him. If he really killed him, the entire Gu family would be in danger. But now, after being forced back 17 steps by June Moxie, he had almost lost his rationality. Too aggrieved. Really too aggrieved. And just at this moment, he realized that Miao Xiao Miao was right beside him. His shameful actions fell into the eyes of the beauty. In this instant, all the blood in his body surged up. This caused his mind, which was already as taut as a drawn bowstring and on the verge of collapse, to instantly collapse. June Moxie kept pressuring him, but he still left some leeway and didn't make him collapse on the spot. Because it didn't matter if Gu Feiyu collapsed, but he himself had to show his strength. But Miao Xiao Miao's gaze finally became the straw that broke the camel's back. At this moment, Gu Feiyu only had one thought in his mind: revenge, revenge on the person in front of him. He suddenly roared, "You're asking for death." Suddenly, a strange and savage look flashed in his eyes, and the long sword in his hand was about to strike out. At this moment, Gu Feiyu's mind had completely collapsed. He didn't care about the consequences anymore. In fact, he didn't even think about the consequences anymore. His only goal was to kill this despicable bastard in front of him. Even if it was the Manor Lord of the Misty Mansion, he would still stab out with his sword. He wouldn't consider the consequences anymore. Just as he was about to stab out with his sword, strangely, Mo Junyi, who had been pressuring him previously, suddenly took 2 steps back and left the area where the tip of his sword was pointing. He spread his hands innocently and shrugged. With a magnanimous smile, he said honestly, Young Master Gu, since you don't have the guts to kill me, then I won't say anything more. There's no need to force you. Miss Xiaomiao is here to bear witness to today's matter. Since we don't have any deep hatred, I'll take the initiative to take 2 steps back, and everyone can just laugh it off. How about that? Because at this moment, June Moxie suddenly felt 2 extremely strong auras coming from the sky, and their target was this restaurant. One of them was very familiar to June Moxie. It was Chao Guofeng. This old man was indeed worried about him coming out, and actually followed him secretly. So June Moxie immediately changed his mind at this moment. Although he didn't know who the other person was, since he was coming in this direction, and his target was so accurate, then it must be related to today's matter. Chapter 924. June Moxie took a step back, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But when Gu Feiyu heard his words, his mental state that had already collapsed was instantly ignited by rage. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. No deep hatred? You've already scolded all 8 generations of my ancestors, almost driving me crazy, and now you're saying let it go with a laugh? Gu Feiyu panted heavily, his eyeballs almost popping out. His handsome face was twisted like a devil from hell, and his saliva flew everywhere as he shouted, Mo Junyi, now that things have come to this, there's no point in talking. No matter how glib your tongue is, I must kill you today. No matter how impressive your free and natural physique is, you're destined to die today. June Moxie laughed bitterly, and his attitude became even better. He said with great grievance, Young Master Gu, you said that you wouldn't humiliate my master, Holy Emperor Chao, so how would I dare to go against you? I'd rather stay as far away from you as possible. Now that I've already expressed that I'm willing to take a step back, you've already gained the upper hand. Why are you still so unforgiving? Could it be that there's no place to reason in this misty mansion? Gu Feiyu had only said that in the Misty Mansion, there were many existences that even Chao Guofeng couldn't afford to offend. But this was the truth, and not some boasting. Although his demeanor was arrogant, he really didn't humiliate Chao Guofeng at all. When June Moxie opened his mouth, he pinned this big hat on his head. Because those 2 auras had already neared at this moment, Gu Feiyu could be said to have lost half of his sanity, and his heart was filled with rage. Under June Dashao's deliberate guidance, he scolded indiscriminately. So what if I scolded Chao Guofeng? You're not used to it? Come on. Come and fight me. Aren't you very daring? Chao Guofeng, that old bastard. Old bastard. Old bastard, why can't I scold him? Under Jun Dashao's guidance, Gu Feiyu only thought, since I've already scolded him, what's the harm in scolding him a few more times? If I can make this little bastard angry, and make him fight me to the death, I can kill him with one strike. This time, he was scolding to his heart's content, and he felt that this kind of scolding was the only way to vent his anger. You insulted my ancestors, so I'll insult your master. Damn it, don't tell me this young master doesn't know how to curse? Only Miao Xiaomiao looked at Gu Feiyu in shock, and then looked at Jun Moxie. Her eyes revealed a strange expression of anger, amusement, and helplessness. Jun Moxie's face turned red and he said angrily, Young Master Gu, how can you do this? You can scold me, I can ignore it, but why do you have to scold Holy Emperor Chao? Furthermore, he scolded them so harshly. Could it be that the 7 of them had all offended him? You're just a junior, where do you get so much anger from? Is this what your elders taught you? Once again, he was tempted. Scolding all 7 of them. Gu Fei, you didn't disappoint Jun Moxie's expectations. He stomped his feet and scolded again. Bah, I'll scold them, what can you do? Bastard. Bastard. So what if there are 7 of them? Are you trying to suppress me with your numbers? Let me tell you, don't look at the 7 Holy Emperor Chao. Damn it, in the eyes of the Gu family, they're not even worth a fart. They're all less than a fart. Miao Xiaomiao covered her face with her hands. Behind Gu Feiyu's indignant figure, there were 2 other figures standing with faces full of anger. It was unknown when they had arrived, but they should have been standing there for a while. Their powerful cultivation hid their auras. Although they were standing there, if one didn't look back, no one would be able to sense that there were 2 living people there. At least, Gu Feiyu, who was a 3rd-grade Shinxian, definitely wouldn't be able to sense them. One of them had a square face, with 3 strands of long beard floating in front of his chest. His nose was straight and his mouth square. Who else could it be but 3rd-grade Holy Emperor Chao Guofeng? As for the other person, his face was like a date, his eyes long and narrow, and his black beard hung down to his abdomen. This person was Gu Feiyu's grandfather, Gu Yunyang. At this moment, the 2 of them were so angry that their faces were green. Miao Xiaomiao saw these 2 people. Jun Moxie also saw them. Even Little Bean Sprout noticed them. Only Gu Feiyu, who had his back to them, didn't see them. It was because Miao Xiaomiao saw these 2 people that a huge wave suddenly rose in her heart. She was an intelligent woman and instantly understood the reason behind Mo Jun Ye's sudden change from when he had the upper hand to now. So it turns out that he had calculated all of this. He already knew that he wasn't Gu Feiyu's match based on his cultivation. But if he kept retreating, he would only humiliate himself. So he simply used his physique to suppress Gu Feiyu ruthlessly. But Gu Feiyu's cultivation was ultimately Shinxian. If he couldn't suppress it, once he came back to his senses, he would still be the one at a disadvantage. So, he didn't hesitate to risk his life and put on the appearance of a fugitive, always being overbearing. He didn't give Gu Feiyu any time to react. So, even with the sword at his throat, he was still able to force Gu Feiyu to retreat 17 steps. What kind of courage did he have? So, he wasn't a fugitive at all. All of this was part of his strategy. But that's not right. Even if that was the case, if no one came, wouldn't it mean that he would die? Miao Xiaomiao frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, her brows relaxed. That's right. So that's why. I didn't expect him to have even calculated this. Because of his free and natural physique, the Misty Mansion would definitely treat him like a treasure. They naturally didn't feel at ease when he came out alone, so there would always be people monitoring him. As long as he made a big enough fuss, someone would immediately rush over to deal with this matter. And he had always been waiting for this person. Thinking up to here, Miao Xiao Miao's heart was filled with shock. A youth who looked to be 1 or 2 years younger than her, how could he have such deep schemes? Also, at the end, Gu Feiyu suddenly broke down. What happened? Although he had been pressing hard all the way, he definitely wouldn't press too hard. On the contrary, other than the time when the tip of the sword had reached his throat at the beginning, Gu Feiyu took a big step back with every step he took. The tip of the sword was getting further and further away from his throat. Though he pursued relentlessly, he had never really put himself in danger again. By right, Gu Feiyu shouldn't have broken down, but he did. What happened? Miao Xiao Miao's thoughts raced. That's right, it's because of me. Because I took a look at Gu Feiyu at that time. He was already on the verge of going crazy from embarrassment, and he cared a lot about me. So that look of mine caused him to break down. If I wasn't here, I'm afraid that this Emo Junyi would have kept suppressing himself until the last moment. Although he didn't look at me, he had been paying attention to me. So when I took a look, Emo Junyi immediately knew that Gu Feiyu was about to break down. So he immediately retreated and distanced himself from the danger. This Emo Junyi had already grasped human nature and Gu Feiyu's character very clearly. When to advance and when to retreat, he was very clear and meticulous. Really impressive. My look disrupted his subordinates, but at this moment, Holy Emperor Chao and Old Clan Master Gu came, and this Emo Junyi immediately retreated to the extreme. He even made use of this retreat to once again incite Gu Feiyu's anger, causing him to lose his rationality. Then, he used words to tempt him and stir up a real conflict. And in the eyes of those who came, he was the most innocent and the one being bullied. Who would have thought that the one being bullied was actually Gu Feiyu, who was cursing incessantly? Since I've already fallen out with Gu Feiyu, and there's no hope of reconciliation, I might as well offend him to the end. Now that I've fallen out with him in front of the higher-ups, I've even put myself in the position of the victim. And Chao Guofeng and the other 6 have found the free and natural physique, and made a great contribution. Looks like the Gu clan is in trouble this time. After thinking through everything, Miao Xiao Miao finally heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Jun Mo Xie with even more astonishment. This person is really a monster. I definitely can't offend him. Otherwise, I really don't know how I'll die in such a complicated situation. He'd come up with a countermeasure at the first moment and reacted correctly. His skills were far inferior to the other party, but he didn't panic at all. Until he turned the situation around with his own strength, and it became a one-sided situation. Miao Xiao Miao asked herself, if she was in Mo Junye's position, she definitely wouldn't be able to do this. It was very simple. The other party had almost subconsciously adopted the most correct method to defend himself and counterattack. And she had been witnessing the development of the matter, and only at the end did she finally deduce all this based on what had already happened. The gap between them was like the distance between heaven and earth. Having provoked such a person, Gu Feiyu is finished. Even the Gu family will be out of luck. Miao Xiao Miao's expression became cautious. When her pair of beautiful eyes looked at Mo Junyi, whose skills and cultivation were far inferior to hers, there was actually a trace of respect. And curiosity. What kind of person is this? This kind of intelligence was more than enough to move unhindered throughout the world. This person is really too scary. Looking at Gu Feiyu's disheveled and ignorant appearance, Miao Xiao Miao suddenly felt relieved. All these years, Gu Feiyu's pestering had indeed made her extremely annoyed. If she could use this Mo Junyi to get rid of Gu Feiyu, it would also be a good thing for her. What Miao Xiao Miao didn't know was that although her speculation was reasonable, only a small part of it was correct. And the real truth was that Jun Dashao was skilled and daring, and he had mixed in a trace of mental control power, but the outcome was the same. Having provoked Jun Moxie, Gu Feiyu was undoubtedly extremely pitiful and unlucky, and right now, the pitiful and unlucky Gu Feiyu was still facing Jun Mo Xie. Not only did he not see the person behind him, he even lost all sense of reason and scolded loudly. Who does Chao Guofeng think he is? Is he even fit to suppress me? F***ck, our Gu family, the Gu family. Brat, do you know about the Gu family? Let me tell you. The men of the Gu family can crush Chao Guofeng as easily as crushing an ant. To think that you relied on him as a backer. Only an ignorant country bumpkin like you would treat him as a dish. To tell you the truth, when my grandfather and Chao Guofeng had a duel, Chao Guofeng was beaten until he knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. He begged until my grandfather was finally merciful, and that was how he managed to survive until today. I think you guys don't know about this, right? Ha 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 ha. What a joke. Country bumpkin, now do you know what kind of person your master is? Chapter 925. 300 years ago, Chao Guofeng and Gu Yunyang had indeed agreed to a battle. The two of them had battled for an entire day and night, with neither being able to determine the victor. Afterwards, the two of them had agreed that this matter would rot in their hearts, and neither of them would spread it. If either of them managed to break through, they would agree to another battle. Chao Guofeng had always been a man of his word, and had never mentioned this matter to anyone. Today, he had actually heard this matter from the mouth of Gu Yunyang's grandson. Furthermore, the result of the battle that had ended in a draw had actually become him kneeling on the ground, begging bitterly for mercy. What kind of situation was this? If this matter were to spread out, would I still be able to live? He could not help but tilt his head slightly, looking at Gu Yunyang with a mocking gaze. Gu Yunyang's face turned red as he said, "Brother Chao, you must not misunderstand. How could there be such a matter? It's all that little bastard's fault for making things up and spouting nonsense." What kind of person was Chao Guofeng? What kind of life experience did he have? As soon as he saw Gu Yunyang's attitude, he understood in his heart that the matter of the battle between the two of them had already been spread out by Gu Yunyang. Even if the result of the battle was not as bad as Gu Yunyang had said, it would definitely not be good. His face could not help but turn as cold as ice as he nodded his head repeatedly. Good, 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 good brother, good friend, good son and grandson, good good good. I, Chao Guofeng, have lived for hundreds of years, but today I've truly broadened my horizons. Who would have thought that the Gu clan in the Misty Mansion would actually be so formidable? After so many years, this old man has truly been ignorant and inexperienced, truly becoming a frog at the bottom of a well. Gu Yunyang's old face revealed a sincere expression of embarrassment. If one had to say, this matter was something that he was truly unable to make head or tail of. It was hard for him to make sense of this matter. Such a secretive matter, only he and Chao Guofeng knew about it. How did his grandson know about it? It was impossible for Chao Guofeng to have divulged it. Even if he had, he wouldn't have done it in such a manner, right? Then the problem must lie with him. But in his memory, he clearly didn't mention this matter to anyone. Coincidentally, this old man had accidentally told his juniors about his battle with Chao Guofeng when he was drunk one day. In front of his juniors, the drunk old man Gu had naturally bragged a little about the results of the battle, turning from a tie to a slight advantage. Unfortunately, as the saying goes, 3 men make a tiger. Under the repeated exaggeration of the younger generation, the more it spread, the more exaggerated it became, and in the end it became like this. It was because of this misinformation that Gu Feiyu believed that Mo Junyi, who had Chao Guofeng as his backing, couldn't afford to offend him. That was why he dared to find trouble with Jun Dashao. In his mind, even if Chao Guofeng came out to seek revenge, he would have his grandfather backing him up. Why would he still take Jun Dashao's warning to heart? Chao Guofeng was unable to restrain his anger. Gu Yunyang, who knew that he was in the wrong, instantly vented his anger on his unlucky grandson. His body flashed, and with a crisp slap, he had already slapped Gu Feiyu's face. Vile spawn! What kind of shameful words are you spouting, you bastard? Hurry up and apologize to Holy Emperor Chao and his disciple." This slap of his was clearly meant to teach his grandson a lesson. It was a clear and crisp slap with great momentum, but in reality, he hadn't used much strength at all. Although it was said to be a lesson, it was actually just a warning, to give both sides some leeway. But what no one expected was that with a crisp "pa" sound, the frozen expression on Gu Fei Yu's face suddenly turned sluggish. Then, his ferocious and ashen face suddenly turned pale. Then, he raised his head and spat out a large mouthful of blood. The scattered blood was like a fog, instantly enveloping the space of about 10 feet. Then, with a wah sound, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood towards the sky. With a loud piu sound, that mouthful of fresh blood actually sprayed onto the ceiling of the building, instantly splattering everywhere. Gu Fei Yu's body trembled as he vomited blood. Swaying for a moment, his entire body suddenly fell to the ground. With a pring sound, he landed heavily on the ground. Both his legs twitched, and his mouth continued to spit out large mouthfuls of blood. He was already unconscious. Just a moment ago, young Master Gu was still swaggering around, insufferably arrogant. But now, his life was hanging by a thread. This sudden turn of events was really out of everyone's expectations. The two old men could no longer be bothered with the fight of personal feelings. Gu Yunyang shot forward and held his grandson in his arms. Feeling his pulse, he couldn't help but turn pale with fright. The meridians in Gu Fei Yu's body were abnormally strange, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. When strong, they were like the clanging of a huge bell, but when weak, they were like gossamer, almost undetectable. His qi and blood actually showed signs of collapse, and there was a possibility that he would die from blood spurting out of his entire body. From the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, including his upper dantian and lower dantian, all his mystical qi was extremely chaotic, like a tangled mess that had been stepped on for 3 days in a donkey's shed. It was difficult to sort it out. This kind of strange symptoms, not to mention an expert who had achieved a lot in the cultivation of qi, even if it was a person who had never cultivated qi, or even a person who had reached the point of being terminally ill, it would not be so bad. Even if one went berserk during cultivation, and fell into a state of eternal damnation, it shouldn't be to the extent of Gu Fei Yu's current state. Even with the cultivation of the Holy Emperor, he actually couldn't save him. What exactly was going on? Gu Yunyang squatted down, stunned. He tried to recall exactly how much strength he had used, but the more he thought, the more confused he became. He clearly hadn't used any mystical qi, and had only used normal strength to slap him, but why was his grandson so heavily injured? If he had really used some strength, why didn't he remember it? Moreover, even if he had used the wrong strength and caused his grandson to be seriously injured, it would only be a slap to death. No matter what, it shouldn't have caused his body to become like this. No matter how he thought about it, his mind was completely blank, and he still couldn't understand it. In fact, the more he thought about it, the more confused he became. What exactly is going on? Gu Yunyang muttered. Suddenly realizing something, he raised his head and looked sharply at Miao Xiao Miao and Jun Moxie, asking coldly, "What exactly is going on?" The first sentence was purely a question, and was directed at him. But the second sentence was extremely harsh, and was directed at the man and woman in front of him. Old Man Gu was obviously sure that in this restaurant, before the two of them had arrived, someone had definitely used some kind of extremely strange underhanded method on Gu Feiyu. As for this person, although he had the free and natural physique, his cultivation was pitifully weak. Although he was the main culprit, that underhanded method was extremely strange, and not something an ordinary expert could do. That Mo brat definitely didn't have that kind of ability, so the only possibility was Miao Xiao Miao. Thinking about it further, his grandson had been pestering Miao Xiao Miao relentlessly for the past few years. Gu Yunyang was naturally very clear about this matter. Could it be that this lass had been pestered to the point that she couldn't take it anymore, and actually had the intention to kill him? Using today's incident as an excuse to kill Chao Guofeng, she even wanted to draw that Mo brat into the fray. In the end, it would only develop into a grudge between the Gu family and Chao Guofeng and the other 7 Saint Emperors. In the end, she would be able to stay out of it? Could it be? Old man Gu thought about it, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was right. The gaze he looked at Miao Xiaomiao also became more and more unkind. If not for the fact that Miao Xiaomiao had a special background and a powerful backer, Gu Yunyang would have long since captured her. Miao Xiaomiao was taken aback. She was an exceptionally intelligent girl, and instantly understood the meaning behind Gu Yunyang's words. Even when Gu Yunyang said those words, she could clearly understand what he was thinking in his heart. When she looked at old man Gu's fierce gaze, she couldn't help but feel a wave of shock in her heart. This was truly a case of sitting in seclusion at home, causing trouble to descend from the heavens. What does this have to do with me, ah? It's clearly your grandson who's been pestering me every day, causing me so much trouble that I can't even bear it. I haven't even said anything yet, and now he's also injured for some unknown reason, and you actually want to pin the blame on me? In that instant, Miao Xiaomiao felt a wave of anger rise in her heart, but her expression didn't change. She said indifferently, "Old man Gu's words are strange. How could the two of us not know what's going on? Just a moment ago, we saw young Master Gu being so overbearing, scolding us so loudly that it shook the heavens. How did it suddenly become like this? Just what is going on?" Miao Xiaomiao's words were equivalent to not saying anything at all. Not only did she not explain anything, she even threw Gu Yunyang's question back at him in her last sentence. Although she had thought of the reason clearly, she did not realize that Gu Feiyu's injuries had already reached a critical state where he could easily die at any moment. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that Gu Feiyu was in a precarious situation with Miao Xiaomiao's background, Gu Yunyang would not dare to treat her like this. But both sides just happened to be in a deadlock, and Miao Xiaomiao's Tai Chi cloud hand pushed the problem back, causing Gu Yunyang to be so angry that he wanted to ascend to the heavens. But because of the other party's status, it was not convenient for him to flare up. Snorting heavily, he circulated his Xian Qi to treat his grandson, not even caring about Chao Guofeng who was beside him. When Miao Xiaomiao first saw Gu Yunyang, she had originally wanted to explain everything in detail. That way, at least she would be able to extricate herself from the blame. But now that she saw Gu Yunyang's stern appearance, she suddenly felt a strong sense of disgust in her heart. "Old man Gu, how impressive! What right do you have to question me like this? Regardless of your identity or status, you do not have the qualifications to question me like this." Because of this reason, she who was unwilling to let go of her pride, swallowed back the words that she was about to say. At the same time, she had some suspicions in her heart. Gu Feiyu was still fine just a moment ago. How did he suddenly become like this, as if his life was in danger? Wasn't this change too strange? It was just anger and a slap that did not contain any xianqi. How could it be this serious? Chapter 926. Previously, he had been enraged by Jun Moxie, and then his killing intent had been stimulated. But because of Jun Moxie's heaven-defying aptitude and shocking identity, he could not make a move and could only forcefully retract his killing intent. But this time, it was equivalent to a fierce battle within his own body. Although it was not to the extent of being injured, it was still a great blow to his mental state, and his Yuan Qi was greatly consumed. And Jun Moxie was still pressing forward relentlessly. Gu Feiyu possessed a body of exquisite Xian skills, and possessed a strength that was tens of times stronger than that of Mo Junyi in front of him, but he still did not dare to make a move. This time, the grievance he felt was not light. He clearly felt that he could crush him to death with a single finger, but when he thought of the grave consequences, he did not dare to make a move even if he died. Thus, Gu Yunyang's killing intent surged out like torrents once again, and then retracted. He had been forced back 17 times by Jun Moxie, 17 steps. His killing intent had also cycled back and forth in his body 17 times. Or rather, it could be said that his body was the battlefield, and he had fought intensely 17 times. Especially when he was so enraged that he could barely control himself, when being invaded by someone else's killing intent, he might still be able to resist it. At the very least, he would be able to actively abandon his consciousness, and he would still have the protection of his body. But when his own killing intent returned, it was truly completely defenseless. Under such circumstances, how could he not be injured? How could he not be injured? How could the meridians of a human be able to endure? Not everyone could be as abnormal as Jun Dashao. Even if Gu Feiyu had the exquisite cultivation of Shen Xian's third grade, he still could not endure it. But if he had started to circulate his qi and regulate his breathing after retreating 17 steps, he would certainly fall gravely ill when he returned, and his Xian skills would also greatly deteriorate, but it would not be life-threatening. But at the 17th time, when his mental state was about to completely collapse, Jun Moxie's retreat had caused a momentary blank. This was human nature, and anyone would react the same way. A fierce and aggressive character suddenly became a little lamb at the mercy of others. This kind of extreme contrast, even the most tenacious person would be stunned for a moment. Although the time he was in a daze was less than 1/10 of the blink of an eye, it was enough for Jun Moxie to seize the opportunity and activate his mind control. Taking advantage of the slight gap in Gu Feiyu's consciousness, he quickly took control of his consciousness. But at this moment, his killing intent was about to surge out, and his profound energy had already been completely mobilized, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. It was surging violently in his meridians. This was equivalent to losing control of his murderous aura and his own profound qi at the same time, completely losing the power to protect his meridians. It was like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, heavily wreaking havoc in his meridians. Gu Feiyu's meridians were directly smashed into pieces and torn into pieces. Originally, if it was just the backlash of profound energy alone, it would not have reached this stage. If it was just the flow of murderous aura, it similarly would not have caused such a terrible outcome. But it was precisely because of the collision and scattering of two completely different auras, and the fact that the murderous aura and profound energy had surged back and forth 17 times, that it had unexpectedly caused Gu Feiyu's current strange injury. Extremely strange. It was extremely strange. This kind of injury had never appeared in this world before, because, from the ancient times until now, among all the experts who had cultivated to the level of Shen Xian and above, who could be as sullen as Gu Feiyu was today? Gu Feiyu's achievement today was actually very worthy of pride, because he had created a historical precedent today. He had become the creator and witness of this strange injury. This reputation might not be much, but it was enough to leave a thick and heavy stroke in the annals of history of profound injuries. It could also be considered as leaving his name in the annals of history, eternally immortalized. Even a third-level holy emperor like Gu Yunyang could not see what had caused his grandson's injury to be like this. In fact, not to mention him, even the other creator of this precedent, Jun Dashao, might not have thought that the result would be like this. Jun Moxie. AI, how could it be like this? Although I had successfully planned the beginning and the entire process, I had not thought of the final ending. What a pity! Gu Yunyang unreservedly channeled his own pure profound energy, but discovered that his grandson's internal body was still in a mess. Even if he wanted to preserve his life, he would have to go through a lot of trouble. At the very least, he would have to completely comb through the meridians in his body, and then combine it with spirit medicine. Only then would there be a chance of saving his life. This injury was really too serious and too strange. But right now, this was obviously not a good place to treat his injuries. Moreover, even if he could recover in the future, Gu Fei Yu's lifetime achievements would end here, and he would not be able to advance even the slightest bit. In fact, there might even be a large regression. Because his meridians were completely combed through by external forces, it was the same as being fixed from here on out. There would no longer be any room for expansion. This successor that he had such high hopes for could be said to be completely crippled. Old man Gu hugged his grandson with one arm, slowly standing up, his expression as heavy as still water. Today's matter, what exactly happened? As he said this, he did not look at anyone, but everyone could feel that he was asking them. As he spoke, the aura around Gu Yunyang's body surged like a raging wave. Abundant in the vast ocean, little Beansprout, who was standing a little further away, began to tremble, her lips deathly white, without a single trace of blood. That pair of big, lively eyes also became dull at this moment. Miao Xiao Miao's light yellow robes fluttered without any wind. She was agitated by the aura, unable to control it, but her eyes were still calm, without a single ripple. A figure flashed, and Chao Guofeng had already appeared in front of Jun Moxie, blocking the aura's assault. Lengling said, "Gu Yunyang, what's wrong? Are you really going to act like an elder today, and force a junior to confess by torture?" "Not necessarily, but this old man feels that there is a need to get to the bottom of today's matter." Gu Yunyang Lengling smiled, saying, "And the crux of the matter lies in the bodies of these three people. I believe old man Chao will not deny this, right?" Although the Gu family had many descendants, there were only a few people in Gu Fei Yu's generation who could truly stand on the stage. And among these few people, Gu Yunyang's Xian cultivation talent might not be ranked first, but it was definitely ranked second. To be able to reach the third grade of Shen Xian at the age of 20, although the Gu family had provided him with countless spirit medicines to aid him, if he did not have a good innate talent, no matter how many spirit medicines and immortal pills he had, he would not be able to grow. It must be known that the entire Gu family had at least 1,000 to 2,000 people. In the Misty Mansion, it could be considered a large family. And one of the most promising youths of this large family had actually been crippled here. The rage in Gu Yunyang's heart could be imagined. "Gu Yunyang, you are also a senior character, and we have interacted normally. But this old man had never imagined that you would actually be this kind of person." Chao Guofeng sighed, his heart pained as he said, "The oath between you and me, it is fine if you did not take it to heart. But you used it as capital to brag about it in front of your descendants. If it was just to show your face in front of your descendants, I can understand, but you actually allowed them to spread their rumors, and did not stop them at all." Chao Guofeng looked at him, a look of sincere disappointment in his eyes. "That is fine. At our level, all kinds of false reputations are like clouds passing through our ears, leaving no trace behind. This old man had allowed you to enjoy your reputation alone, so what? But today, for the sake of your own grandson, you actually disregarded the future of the Misty Mansion, releasing your aura without permission, forcefully forcing a free and natural physique expert, as well as the granddaughter of the Misty Mansion's manor lord. Gu Yunyang, could it be that for the sake of this good-for-nothing grandson, you are willing to abandon the entire Gu family?" As he said that last sentence, Chao Guofeng's hair and beard stood on end, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes as he stared viciously at Gu Yunyang. The expression on Gu Yunyang's face changed slightly, relaxing slightly as he said, "Holy Emperor Chao's words are too serious. This old man only wanted to find out the truth. Could it be that Holy Emperor Chao wants to accuse this old man of rebelling? If Miss Xiao Miao says it, then so be it. If she doesn't, then so be it. Today, with so many people here to witness it with their own eyes, could it be that the truth still hasn't come to light?" Chao Guofeng snorted coldly, saying, What a nice way to put it. At this time, the two of them were already in a standoff. Miao Xiao Miao sighed lightly, opening her mouth to speak. She did not wish for the situation to become even more tense. If she explained things clearly, all three parties would have a way out of this awkward situation. But June Moxie was happy to see the current situation. How could he allow her to open her mouth to resolve the situation? Taking a step forward, he said, "Since old Senior Gu wishes to understand the truth, and this junior's heart is also filled with questions, how about I explain the entire situation to old Senior? The two misses can listen here. If there is anything that this little brat says that doesn't match up with the truth, you can point it out on the spot." Gu Yun Yang's eyes flickered. "Fine, speak." Old Master Gu had already determined that this was the doing of Miao Xiao Miao, so he was naturally unwilling to listen to Miss Miao Zhao's monologue. Seeing that June Daxiao had taken the initiative to appear, he was naturally more willing to listen to June Moxie's explanation. Seeing that this brat is honest and straightforward, he probably won't lie, Gu Yunyang thought in his heart. It's like this. This junior has just recovered from a serious illness and came out to take a stroll. Coincidentally, this miss went to invite me, saying that the young miss wishes to see me. June Moxie looked at little Beansprout indifferently, slowly narrating his story. From the start, Chao Guofeng and Gu Yunyang understood what was going on. The cause of today's matter was very clear. Miao Xiao Miao had taken the initiative to invite Mo Junyi, and then Gu Feiyu, who had been following by her side, had become jealous. In addition, when Mo Junyi had come to the Misty Mansion, with his extraordinary talent and free and natural physique, with his cultivation not yet at the Silver Xian, he had suddenly become the #1 youth in the Misty Mansion. Gu Feiyu was definitely unconvinced in his heart. With all these factors added together, he naturally wanted to use this as a pretext to humiliate this free and natural physique youth. At that time, this junior was extremely afraid. June Daxiao shrunk his shoulders, looking at Gu Yunyang in fear. This junior has never seen much of the world since he was young, so how could he dare to argue with young Master Gu? I wanted to avoid him, but young Master Gu said, "There are too many existences in the Misty Mansion that even Holy Emperor Chao does not dare to provoke. He told me not to be arrogant." Chapter 927. When Gu Yunyang and Chao Guofeng heard this, they instantly understood that the main point of the dispute today was most likely because of this sentence. Although this sentence could not be considered as cursing someone, and it could not be considered as humiliating Chao Guofeng, the disdain in it was clear to see. Which disciple would be able to maintain their composure after being insulted by the other party? If they were able to maintain their composure, then they would simply be idiots. As expected, June Moxie was filled with righteous indignation. Holy Emperor Chao has shown me great kindness, and even saved me from the brink of death. This junior did not forget your teachings, but I really could not control myself. So I asked young Master Gu then, among the people that Holy Emperor Chao cannot afford to offend, does that include him? Gu Yunyang's face instantly darkened. Chao Guofeng's originally gloomy face instantly turned into a smile, feeling gratified. He could not help but feel that all his efforts had not been in vain. The two of them could already imagine how furious Gu Feiyu would be when he heard this sentence. This was equivalent to slapping his face in front of everyone. With Gu Feiyu's weak cultivation, how could he be someone that Chao Guofeng could not afford to offend? Then, young Master Gu seemed to want to teach me a lesson. He pulled out his sword and pointed it at my throat. Although he did not really stab me, it really touched my neck. At that time, it was really painful. I almost thought that my neck had been pierced through. June Moxie's face was filled with lingering fear as he spoke. Chao Guofeng snorted heavily, his face instantly becoming extremely ugly. Although June Daxiao was standing in front of him unharmed, He had actually been placed in a dangerous situation with a sharp sword at his throat. How could he not be worried? Gu Yunyang's expression also changed. His own grandson was not convinced of the other party's talent, and was jealous. Then, he even insulted the other party's master. After being questioned by the other party, he unsheathed his sword to bully and humiliate the other party. In the end, he even scolded the other party. This kind of behavior was really too excessive. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was despicable and shameless. In such a situation, even if the other party suddenly went berserk and killed him with a single slash, with so many reasons in front of him, he couldn't blame the other party. At the side, Miao Xiaomiao furrowed her brows. She vaguely felt that this Mo Junyi was not telling the truth. However, she could not tell what was wrong, because he was speaking according to what had happened at that time. There was really not a single mistake, and there was not even a single omission. Actually, it wasn't that there weren't any cuts. It was a huge cut. The Mo Junyi, Mo Dashao, didn't mention what he did or what he said at that time. In fact, the words that Mo Junyi had said at that time were the true focal point of all the contradictions. However, this crafty brat had used the spring and autumn period technique to cut and omit, making himself completely innocent. Moreover, he had a sincere and honest look on his face. Moreover, he had a look of lingering fear on his face. After all, he had narrowly escaped death. No one could have imagined that this unbelievably honest youngster would be able to inflict serious internal injuries on a third-grade immortal Xian expert even though he was at a complete disadvantage, but this time, his one-sided statement had achieved a considerable effect. Chao Guofeng was getting angrier and angrier, and Gu Yunyang was becoming more and more in the wrong. In the end, he was even somewhat embarrassed to raise his head to look at Chao Guofeng. At that time, I was really scared to death. I was really afraid that young Master Gu would kill me with a single slash. However, if I begged for mercy, I'm afraid that the humiliation that followed would be even heavier. In fact, it might even affect the prestige of Holy Emperor Chao. Although I was extremely afraid of death, if I implicated the prestige of Holy Emperor Chao, even if I died 100 times, I wouldn't be able to redeem myself. As Jun Moxie spoke up to hear, Gu Yunyang and Chao Guofeng both nodded their heads. Both of them knew that if they had given in that kind of situation, how would they have a good ending in the future? As for the free and natural physique that Chao Guofeng had picked up like a treasure, if it turned out to be a coward who was afraid of death, he would definitely become the laughingstock of the entire Misty Mansion. There was no need to doubt this. Thus, I hardened my heart and took another step forward. I said, "Do you dare to kill me? If you dare, then just kill me," Jun Dashao said as he imitated the situation at that time, taking a step forward. Gu Yunyang sighed heavily as he looked at the unconscious grandson in his arms. His desire for revenge suddenly faded. In addition, there was a feeling of helplessness in his heart. This youth with the free and natural physique was currently at a crucial period where no one dared to approach him. Why did you provoke him for no reason? You've pushed yourself to the top of the wall, but now you can't get down. Chao Guofeng imagined Gu Feiyu holding his sword to someone's throat, but not daring to stab no matter what. His heart had been filled with worry earlier, but now it was filled with relief. He could not help but smile lightly. Kill this youth with the free and natural physique? Not to mention Gu Feiyu at that time, even the enraged Gu Yunyang did not dare to do such a thing. I don't know what young Master Gu was thinking, but he did not stab over. At that time, I was actually very afraid that I would implicate Holy Emperor Chao, so I stubbornly held on. But young Master Gu also did not move. As such, this junior and young Master Gu were stuck there in a deadlock. The two of us were riding a tiger, unable to dismount, unable to stop even if we wanted to. Jun Moxie revealed an aggrieved expression as he said, "Thus, I thought that I might as well take another step forward. Because I knew that if I didn't advance then, You don't need to say any more. We've more or less understood what happened afterwards. Gu Yunyang interrupted him. The next part would be his grandson cursing Chao Guofeng, so he hurriedly stopped him. This old man will only ask you one question. How many times did you advance? How many steps? And Fei Yu He, how many steps did he retreat? This. Jun Moxie scratched his head in embarrassment. This junior's mind was completely blank at that time, and it was almost a subconscious action. Right now, I can't remember the exact number. Gu Yunyang nodded his head, looking at Miao Xiaomiao. Miao Xiaomiao thought for a moment, then said with certainty, Young Master Mo advanced a total of 17 times. 17 steps. From that position, he forced his way to this corner. And young Master Gu retreated 17 times. Every time, young Master Gu was extremely enraged, wanting to stab out with his sword. And on the 17th time, you guys arrived. Miao Xiaomiao's interjection this time proved that what Jun Moxie had said earlier was the truth. And Jun Moxie had purposely left this gap, so that Miao Xiaomiao could explain, and it would make things worse. 17 times. Hiss. Gu Yunyang and Chao Guofeng simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. Gu Yunyang's gaze towards Jun Moxie changed once again. It became filled with vigilance and caution. This simple and honest-looking youth had actually used his throat to block the sword, forcing his opponent to retreat 17 times. 17 steps. What kind of concept was this? Miao Xiaomiao and the rest were still young, so they did not understand the pros and cons of this. But Gu Yunyang and Chao Guofeng were extremely clear. What kind of person would be able to face death unflinchingly like this? Even if it was a forced action, even if it was a subconscious action, it was still extremely rare and precious. It must be known that in these 17 times, with Gu Fei Yu's strength, he could easily kill him 1700 times. This brat, it was as if he was dancing on the tip of a knife, going back and forth in front of Yama's palace, interrupting him time and time again, entering and exiting. Chao Guofeng suddenly realized something and said, Gu Yunyang, I think you should understand by now that your grandson's injuries were caused by himself. In other words, he forced himself to suffer such heavy injuries. Gu Yunyang was startled, then nodded his head in agreement, pulling out his sword in extreme rage. The sword must have been filled with Xian Qi. But that Xian Qi could not be released and could only flow back into his body, causing a backlash. And from what Miao Xiaomiao had said, in these 17 times, Gu Fei Yu had wanted to kill someone every single time, but he had forcefully endured it. This was equivalent to his own Xian Qi backlashing 17 times in such a short period of time. Adding on anger, killing intent, unwillingness and grievance, all of these resulted in such a strange injury. It was within reason. Gu Yunyang was speechless, his face full of bitterness. The truth was right in front of his eyes, so who should he look for to settle the score? No one was suitable. It was very obvious that it was his grandson who had initiated the provocation, cursing and drawing his sword, but he could not endure it, resulting in such a terrible situation. Just how excessive Gu Fei Yu's cursing had been, both of them had heard it with their own ears. This point, what else was there to say? Look for Mo Junyi to settle the score? From the looks of it, the other party was the victim. Look for Miao Xiaomiao to settle the score. The other party was even more innocent. It seemed like she was just a bystander. But, if he really did not look for anyone, could he just let this matter rest like this? Gu Yunyang, this old man will say something fair. You should rejoice. Because at least your grandson is not dead yet. Chao Guofeng said gloomily. If he had not suffered such heavy injuries, do you think this old man would not be looking for you for an explanation? How can this old man's reputation be tarnished by a mere brat? At that time, perhaps this precious grandson of yours will not be as miserable as he is now, but whether his little life will still be there, this old man cannot guarantee. Gu Yunyang was initially enraged, but his heart suddenly relaxed inexplicably. he asked probingly. Brother Chow's meaning, could it be that you do not intend to pursue this matter? Chow Guofeng snorted, saying, Your grandson has already fallen to this state, what else can this old man pursue? However, you, Gu Yunyang, still owe this old man an explanation. This old man does not know how the younger generation of your old Gu clan has been slandering this old man behind the scenes. This explanation, you must give it to me. Gu Yunyang heaved a sigh of relief, saying, Brother Chow, please quell your anger, this old man will definitely give you an explanation. If there are any more filthy words about this old man in the outside world, this old man can just blame it on this old man. As he said that, he raised his head in deep thought, letting out a deep sigh. Turning his head to look at Miao Xiao Miao, he said, Miss Xiao Miao, today's matter is truly Fei Yu's fault. Earlier, this old man was too concerned about my grandson and offended Miss Xiao Miao. I hereby express my sincere apologies to Miss Xiao Miao. In the future, if Fei Yu is fortunate enough to make a full recovery, this old man will definitely keep a close eye on him, not allowing him to disturb Miss Xiao Miao's peace. Miao Xiao Miao hurriedly returned the greeting, saying, Grandfather Gu's words really caused Xiao Miao to feel ashamed. No matter. Gu Yunyang forced a smile, saying, It's just that, with Fei Yu's current state, if he is not treated soon, I'm afraid his life will truly be over. Therefore, this old man would like to ask Miss Xiao Miao for a favor. How about it? Chapter 928. This old man wishes to see your esteemed father. Gu Yunyang said bitterly. He had gone through all the methods he could think of just now. Now that he had understood the source of the injury, he could find the right medicine. It would not be difficult to preserve Gu Fei Yu's life, or even make a full recovery. But after a full recovery, he would not be able to improve any further. That was the true problem. And the only thing that could allow Gu Fei Yu to fully recover without leaving any sequelae, or even improve his condition further, was the seven-colored holy fruit. None of the other methods had such an effect. Thus, Gu Yunyang did not hesitate to lower his status and apologize to Miao Xiao Miao, even offering some conditions. Chow Guofeng snorted coldly. Gu Yunyang, you want the seven-colored holy fruit to treat your grandson's illness? You're really muddle-headed. Do you think that the seven-colored holy fruit is a cabbage grown in your courtyard? Of course Chow Guofeng was anxious. Right now, in the Misty Mansion, there were only two people in the younger generation who had the qualifications to consume the seven-colored holy fruit. One was Mo Junyi, and the other was Miao Xiao Miao. The seven-colored holy fruit would only bear fruit once every 500 years, and only 2 sets would be produced at a time. The two of them were precisely 1 set per person. If Gu Yunyang wanted one of them, then one of them would definitely not be able to eat it for the next 500 years. They would have to wait for another 500 years. This cycle would take an entire 1,000 years. The Miao family had controlled the Misty Mansion since ancient times, and Miao Xiao Miao was the #1 genius of this generation in the Miao family. She was also the pearl of the Miao family. When the time came, there was no need to consider who to give the fruit to. Chow Guofeng, you have no right to question this old man's plans, Gu Yunyang Lengling said. As for whether the manor lord gives this old man face or not, it has nothing to do with you. Gu Yunyang was also conflicted in his heart. He wasn't willing to offend Chow Guofeng. After all, the other party was an expert from the Holy Emperor, and the relationship between the two of them wasn't bad. But at this juncture, he couldn't care less. If the free and natural physique didn't consume the holy fruits, his cultivation speed would definitely be slow. It would definitely affect the overall situation of the Misty Mansion in the future, but his grandson was equally important. Please forgive me, Grandpa Gu. I really can't make the decision on this matter. Miao Xiao Miao replied cautiously, however, I'll explain what happened today to my father and grandfather when I get back. Gu Yunyang let out a long sigh, since that's the case, let's resign ourselves to fate. He picked up his grandson and flew out of the window, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Before leaving, he didn't even bid farewell to anyone. Miao Xiao Miao's words were thought-provoking. She only said that she would tell her family about today's incident, but was she talking about today's dispute? Or was it about the matter of Gu Yunyang obtaining the holy fruit? If it was the former, there would be no meaning in explaining it in detail. Or perhaps there was no need to explain it in detail. Thus, from a certain point of view, her words had already expressed her rejection of Gu Yunyang. What kind of character was Gu Yunyang? How could the old scheming him not be able to tell? Thus, old Master Gu no longer sought a rebuff. He picked up his grandson and immediately returned to the mansion. After all, the earlier he started the treatment, the smaller the losses would be, and the lighter the side effects would be. With Miao Xiao Miao interfering, there was no longer any hope of obtaining the 7-colored holy fruit. Chao Guofeng chuckled lightly, looking at Jun Moxie, then at Miao Xiao Miao. The more he looked, the more he liked him. Since there's nothing else, this old man will also take his leave. Junyi, you should hurry back after playing for a while. This time, I didn't want you to cause trouble, but who would have thought that you would still cause trouble? As he said that, he turned to look at Miao Xiao Miao and said, Last Xiao Miao, this disciple of mine has just arrived and is not familiar with the Misty Mansion. If you don't have anything else to do, you can bring my disciple on a tour. Miao Xiao Miao was filled with curiosity towards Jun Moxie and wanted to find some time to understand this fellow's background. Hearing this, she naturally agreed. Just as Chao Guofeng was about to leave, he suddenly realized that he had forgotten something. After thinking for a while, he asked, That's right, where are Wang Ning and Li Jie who were following you? Jun Moxie replied naively, The two of them, I don't know where they went. In his heart, he thought to himself, Those two fellows are probably in court right now, you don't have to look for them anymore. Chao Guofeng was enraged. When those two return, I will definitely punish them heavily. I gave them such a heavy responsibility, but they only cared about their own fun. What use do I have for these two things? Shaking his head, he flew away with a whoosh and disappeared without a trace. Seeing that the two holy emperor-level experts had parted on bad terms and left angrily, only Miao Xiao Miao, Little Bean Sprout, and Jun Moxie were left in the private room of the restaurant. The three of them looked at each other, and no one was willing to speak first. For a moment, there was a subtle silence. Jun Moxie touched his nose. He thought to himself, This girl is so mysterious with a veil covering half of her face. I can't see her clearly. It's really like looking at flowers through a fog. But it's not good to just remain silent. Forget it, I have self-restraint and will speak first to break the deadlock. Two ladies, I wonder what the two of you want me to come here for? Jun Mo Xie suddenly remembered that it was these two girls who had invited him over. They hadn't even said anything, but they had already engaged in a battle of words. And they had even sent the second person who must not be provoked back into an unconscious state. This matter. But, at least there was a reasonable excuse to speak first. Actually, it's not a big deal. Miao Xiao Miao's words had been carefully considered, and she was extremely cautious. This great genius Mo Junyi in front of her, Mo Junyi, looked honest and sincere, but in fact, he was full of schemes and plots. Once he was offended, it was not a joke. He might bite you at any time, and it would not be over until your skin was torn. It was best not to provoke him. Besides, there doesn't seem to be a need for that. Actually, I heard that a genius like young Master Mo has come to the Misty Illusory Manor, and our Misty Illusory Manor has gained another young hero with a bright future. These few days, I've heard the seniors talking about you, and so I had the intention to get to know young Master. Who would have thought that there would be such a storm, and it's a pity. Young Miss really thinks too highly of me. June Moxie laughed dryly and said, "Actually, there's nothing special about me. I'm just a living person, and I only have one mouth, one nose, and two eyes. I'm just a little more handsome and good-looking than the average person. I'm afraid of being beaten, and I'll still die if I'm cut by a knife. Now that young Miss sees me, I believe you must be very disappointed, right?" Meow Xiao Meow opened her eyes wide and looked at him. After a while, she stammered, "No, I'm not disappointed." "That's good, that's good." June Moxie was relieved, and said in a self-deprecating manner, "I thought I wasn't as handsome as before, but my charm is still the same. I'm very comforted." Little Beansprout, who was at the side, laughed out loud. Meow Xiao Meow heard June Dashao's self-praise, and couldn't help but smile. She bent her body and covered her mouth as she snickered. June Dashao shook his head and said, "Looking at you guys laughing, it's really tiring. If you want to laugh, just laugh. Why do you have to cover your mouth and hide it? Look at me, I should laugh like this. That's bold and forthright. At least it's very comfortable and delightful." As he said that, he raised his head, gathered his chi in his dantian, and laughed out loud, "Ha! Ha! Ha! Ha!" His laughter was sonorous and forceful. The two little Lolas couldn't hold it in any more. They held their stomachs and staggered, laughing so hard that they were almost spasming. "Why are you still laughing like that? It seems that this is a little difficult for you." June Dashao frowned seriously, as if thinking hard for a while, and said seriously, "Or you can try laughing like this, it might be more suitable for you." As he said that, he raised his head and squeezed his eyebrows. "Ha ha ha ha!" This action and voice were exactly like Stephen Chow's. He laughed while shrugging his shoulders. He laughed a total of 4 times, but from 1 laugh to 4 laughs the cadence was very rich, and his expression was very rich. "Ha ha ha ha!" The two little girls didn't care about being reserved anymore, and directly slapped the table and laughed. Their faces were red, and their little cherry mouths were wide open. Their little pink tongues could be faintly seen jumping happily in their mouths. "Look, isn't it very comfortable to laugh like this? Very comfortable? Don't you feel especially relaxed? Especially delightful?" June Moxie said with a straight face, "This is the way to release a person's true nature. If you want to laugh, laugh loudly, laugh to your heart's content, and be free and natural. Laughter is something that only happens when one's heart is happy. If one has to control oneself when one is happy, then what's the point of laughing?" June Moxie sighed. "Life in this world is nothing more than the spring of grass and trees. It's a mixture of sorrow and bitterness, and it's rare to have too many moments of joy. Whether it's separation in life or death, or love and hate, it's all depressing. So, we must seize every moment of happiness, and laugh to our heart's content. Because after we laugh this time, we don't know when we'll have the next time to laugh to our heart's content." His words were said in a low voice, but it evoked the hearts of the two girls. Meow Xiao Meow sighed softly, and said in a low voice, "That's right, there's too little laughter in life, but there's so much sorrow and hardship." Brother Mo's words really speak of the true meaning of the 5 tastes of life. She had always called June Dashao young Master Mo, but at this moment she had unconsciously changed the way she addressed him, and became Brother Mo. It was obvious that their relationship had taken a step closer. June Moxie laughed and said, "May I ask Miss Meow, before you laughed today, when was the last time you laughed? Do you still remember?" Meow Xiao Meow's eyes revealed a thoughtful look, but it slowly turned into sincere sadness. She said faintly, "I don't remember, I really don't remember." Chapter 929. Little Beansprout giggled and said, "Young Master Mo's words are wrong. My young mistress's youth is not just a few decades. My young mistress has consumed both the exquisite lotus and the 7-colored holy fruit, and her beauty can be preserved for at least 500 years. "Shut up, little Beansprout." Meow Xiao Meow stopped her in a low voice and turned to June Moxie apologetically. Little Beansprout is still young and doesn't understand such worries. Please don't take it to heart, young master. Innocence is the best period of one's life. I can't wait to admire and like her, so why would I take it to heart? If you're jealous, then perhaps you'll be a little jealous. June Emosia laughed carefreely as he took the opportunity to tease. For young master to say such words, I can see young master's pure heart. Xiao Miao, may I ask young master, when was the last time young master laughed to his heart's content? Miao Xiao Miao countered with a question. The last time I laughed? I think it was yesterday. That is, if what happened before today doesn't count. June Moxie smiled and said, I often remind myself that the world is already like this. It is already a great fortune for me to be able to breathe and still be alive. This is worth laughing at. So I laugh every single day. Not only that, I even try to make the people around me laugh along with me. June Moxie looked at her with a smile and said, Who knows how many worries I can have if I laugh every day? Whether it's real or fake, I'll treat it as real. Young master is really open-minded. Xiao Miao is extremely envious and jealous. Miao Xiao Miao's clear eyes revealed a look of yearning, but it was only for a moment before she regained her calmness and said, Since young master has come to the Misty Mansion, I believe you should know the importance of the free and natural physique to the Misty Mansion. What are your plans for the future? As she said that, she slowly raised her head and looked into June Moxie's eyes without blinking. I only know that young master's aptitude is outstanding, and I've seen young master's quick-wittedness and decisiveness in handling matters. But how is young master's literary talent? Then, do you want me to be talented? Or do you want me to be an idiot? June Moxie smiled. Young master must be joking. Miao Xiao Miao blushed as a hint of shyness flashed across her eyes. She said, Miao Xiao Miao, can you recite a poem about your lifelong ambition? Why don't you let me appraise it? June Emosia exclaimed in his heart. If it was said out loud, the lie would come out easily. However, if it was a poem, not only would it be much more difficult, what was written would definitely be one's true thoughts, because a poem was the voice of one's heart. In such a hurry, it was impossible to write a poem that did not belong to one's feelings. This girl's request was firstly to test his literary talent, and secondly, to see his true thoughts. Because he was afraid that he would lie, he came up with this method to make things difficult for him. He already had the free and natural physique, was quick-witted, decisive, and ruthless. These should be the impression this girl had of him now. But if it was just these, he could still come up with a suitable strategy to deal with his weaknesses. What he was afraid of was, if such a person was also cultured, that would be even more terrifying. Since that's the case, I might as well give you a good shock. June Moxie fell silent for a moment, his brows arched as he recited, Obeying the heavens may not necessarily exist, defying the heavens should be laughed. Who is like me, pointing my sword at the waves of the world? He paused for a moment before continuing, The sun and moon enter my chest, watch me dominate the world. The green sword is casually unsheathed, asking who dares to walk the clouds with me? A sword with lofty sentiments for eternity. Wild winds sweep up the yellow sand, blood rains and foul winds, but I do not fall. A sword to conquer the world, hegemony for eternity. In terms of heroes, stand tall and ask for the sword, never bending in this life. Who is dancing in the clouds, let my gaze pierce through the horizon, my heart broken, the wind and snow howling in my heart. The song ends and the people scatter, a sword piercing the 9 heavens in anger. The ancient and the present laugh together, the heavens and the earth are free to roam. Those of the future do not compare with me. His voice was sonorous, like the sound of a battle, like a toast before going on an expedition, like a general's order before a massacre. But at this moment, even though he was just listening to it, he already felt his blood boiling, his heart filled with emotions. After June Moxie finished reciting, he looked at the master and servant pair, only to see that they were both stunned. Meow Xiao Meow would never have imagined that this fellow in front of her was actually talented in both literature and martial arts, and was also extremely intelligent. Such an outstanding youth, not to mention in the Misty Mansion, even in the outside world, how many people could there be? How many people could come up with such a lofty poem with just a single step? Not mentioning aptitude, not mentioning courage, not mentioning intelligence, not mentioning potential, just this outstanding literary talent was enough to make others look at him in a different light. But this tone seemed to be a little too arrogant. Who dances in the clouds? Let my gaze pierce through the horizon, my heart broken by 100 winds and snow. Meow Xiao Meow murmured under her breath. Her memory was very good, and June Mo Xie had only said it once, but she had already memorized it all. But right now she was repeating this line over and over again. It was the line that had a hint of chivalry in it. The more Meow Xiao Meow recited, the more she felt that this sentence contained a sense of melancholy, unexpectedly making one's heart ache. Who is dancing in the clouds? Let my gaze pierce through the horizon, my heart broken, the wind and snow howling in my heart. My lover is dancing in the clouds, but I am on the ground, unable to see her, my heart broken, the wind and snow howling in my heart. After a long time, Meow Xiao Meow then let out a long sigh, lowered her eyebrows and smiled, saying, "Brother Mo's words are logical, really good literary talent. This little sister is ashamed of her inferiority." June Moxie laughed heartily and said, "It's just a small trick, how can it enter the Hall of Elegance?" Just a few crooked words barely entered Mrs. Discerning Eyes. Nothing is more fortunate than this in this world. It's also thanks to the few years of learning words from an old man in the mountains, otherwise, Miss Meow would have really made a fool of me this time. This time, what June Dashao said was from the bottom of his heart, probably because his literary foundation was all learned from that assassin master in his previous life. Until now, whenever he thought of that old man, June Moxie still felt his butt twitching in pain. As for this poem, it was written by a predecessor in June Dashao's memory. Who exactly did it belong to, but he couldn't remember the name. The reason why he remembered it was because June Moxie really liked the boldness of this poem, so he remembered it attentively, but he didn't expect to use it here. At this moment, with a slight change, only a few sentences were changed, and when he read it out, it really received an amazing result. At this moment, the gaze that little Beansprout used to look at June Moxie had completely turned into worship, even to the point of worship. Too handsome, too awesome, too talented. If I could marry such a husband. Ayaya, what am I thinking? It's so embarrassing. Brother Mo is really too modest. Meow Xiao Meow raised her eyebrows and smiled, saying, "The one who taught young master how to read and write must have been a knowledgeable scholar of the present age, a great scholar of his generation. Moreover, he has the guts of a sword and the heart of a zither, gentle and chivalrous, strong and upright. Such a person really makes one's heart fall in admiration just by thinking about it." Meow Xiao Meow was too embarrassed to praise June Moxie in front of him, as it seemed to have other intentions. It was easy for people to overthink, so she instead praised June Moxie's master. June Mo Xie was startled. He wasn't acting at all. He was genuinely startled. He had never thought that there would actually be someone in this world who would praise that old bastard so much. He was a real executioner, a typical butcher. His heart was so cold that it could freeze, and he was so ruthless that anyone who saw him would be scared to death. He actually became a knowledgeable scholar? A great scholar of his generation? Moreover, he has the guts of a sword and the heart of a zither, gentle and upright. I'm really damn. These words are quite appropriate to describe me. How can they describe that old bastard? It's simply a waste of these words, however. I haven't seen that old bastard for so many years. I really miss him. As he was thinking, a pair of blade-like eyes suddenly appeared in front of June Moxie, who was lost in thought, flashing a cold, murderous intention. thin lips, thin face, and looking at him bleakly. Bastard. Want to be lazy again? See if I don't teach you a lesson. Along with this shout, there seemed to be an extremely familiar gust of cold wind blowing over. June Dashao suddenly shivered, only then did he realize that his eyes had become a little wet unconsciously, that long-lost, only, strict but no lack of warmth. Old man, if you suddenly heard that I was blown to pieces, I wonder if you would cry? He remembered the first time he was injured in the past. He was shot in the shoulder by a gun, and the bullet penetrated downwards, injuring his lung lobe, which was considered a very serious injury. Before that, he had always resented the old man because he always scolded and beat him. Even if he made a wrong move when drinking wine, he would still be beaten up. If he tasted wine wrong for a month, he would also be treated like a storm. At that time, Jun Xie really regarded the old man as his biggest enemy in his life. He gnashed his teeth in hatred. He even made countless vows in his heart, that as long as he had enough power, or a suitable opportunity, he would definitely return the favor. He would dismember the old man into 1,000 pieces, and grind his bones into ashes. Only then would he be able to relieve the hatred in his heart. However, it was precisely that time when he was seriously injured, and his life was in danger, that the old man took him and flew 800 miles through the night, and he was admitted to the best hospital in the city. He remembered that at that time there was still no expression on the old man's face. It was as deep as an abyss, but the needle of the speedometer stayed at the highest speed possible, and it didn't slide even a little bit. An assassin would never take the initiative to enter the hospital, especially when he was injured by a gunshot. During the few days that Jun Xie was hospitalized, he didn't see the old man again. Jun Moxie, who was seriously injured and in a semi-conscious state, seemed to only remember one sentence that the old man said: "You have to remember that you were shot by a stray bullet on the beach. You are the son of a fisherman, and you are an orphan." He didn't see the old man even when he was discharged from the hospital. Then, after about a month, the old man came back with a body full of wounds. Chapter 930. In order for Jun Xie to survive and get the best medical treatment, the old man sent him to the hospital without hesitation. Then, he was naturally investigated, and then, naturally, he was put in prison. Jun Xie could cover up with that lie, but the old man couldn't. The old man's body was full of old wounds and his unique cold temperament. There were too many problems, and they had unknowingly exposed his true identity. After the old man returned from prison after several twists and turns, he didn't mention a word about it. It was as if nothing had happened at all. The training was as strict as ever. When he didn't pass, the old man would still scold him as a little bastard, and even beat him up. But Jun Xie already knew clearly that this old man was the one he could really rely on. Some words didn't need to be said, because those things only needed to be done. A casual remark from Miao Xiao Miao, whether intentionally or unintentionally, evoked a distant memory from the bottom of Jun Moxie's heart. It was also the only past that would make him feel warm whenever he thought of it. Jun Moxie sat quietly, with a faint but eternal yearning in his eyes. There was a leisurely smile on his face. His eyes were distant, dreamy, and illusory. It seemed that at this moment, he had entered a world that only belonged to him. Miao Xiao Miao's clear eyes stared at Jun Dashao quietly, and her eyes slowly became warm. For a long time, she didn't say anything to disturb him, letting Jun Moxie immerse himself in his own memories. After a long while, Jun Moxie raised his head, and his scattered eyes became focused again. He smiled at Miao Xiao Miao and said lightly, "Just now I inadvertently recalled some old things, which made me lose my composure. I made a fool of myself in front of you. Revealing your true feelings is a sign of a pure heart, just like young master's true temperament. Where did you lose your composure? Young master must have thought of something worth remembering, right?" Miao Xiao Miao's eyes were a little gentle as she asked softly. June Moxie took a deep breath and said, "That's right. In life, there are always some things that we can never forget because they are worth remembering. But it is often these things that we think are worth remembering that make our hearts ache when we think about them, but we never want to forget them." Meow Xiao Meow listened quietly and did not speak for a long time. Finally, she smiled and said softly, "But to have such a person or a few people in your heart, to have such a thing or a few things is also a blessing. The saddest thing is, if you don't even have such a person or such a thing in your life, that would be the most pitiful." "You're right." June Moxie smiled and asked, "May I ask if Miss Meow feels the same way? Are there any past events worth remembering, or people?" Meow Xiao Meow's gaze quietly looked at his face. After a long time, she slowly moved away from his face and looked quietly at a point in the empty space outside the window. After a while of silence, she said bitterly, "No, there isn't." Interesting. Young lady's words are really confusing to me. First say no, then say there isn't, is there or not? Ha. June Moxie laughed heartily. Meow Xiao Meow's eyes didn't have the slightest hint of a smile. She turned her head to look at him, then turned her face back and faintly sighed. The flowers in the forest wither in the spring. Too hurried. Helpless cold rain in the morning and wind in the evening. Rouge tears leaving people drunk. How long will it last? Naturally, people grow up in regret. Ha. After reciting the poem, June Moxie laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "What Miss likes should be this kind of melancholy. Just like the poem that I improvised just now, it was undoubtedly a little too heavy. Miss, you don't have to worry about it." Meow Xiao Meow's eyebrows slightly raised. Her body trembled a little. She wanted to refute, "I, Meow Xiao Meow, am not an ordinary girl. The melancholy that ordinary girls like, I may not like it. I know how to differentiate between good and bad poems. The poem that you recited earlier was grand and imposing. You actually had to be humble and improvise. That's too much. Don't you know that excessive modesty is hypocrisy?" However, after hearing the second poem that June Moxie recited, she slowly recalled it in her heart. Unexpectedly, she didn't have the courage to refute it. This poem is really too melancholy. Just by thinking about it in his heart, he could already feel how helpless and sorrowful it was, how elusive it was, but it was also like a light fog, surrounding his heart, covering his eyes, covering the entire world. It was hazy, making him feel intoxicated, like a dream, like an illusion, but also making him feel like his heart was being broken into pieces. The flowers in the forest wither in the spring. Too hurried. Helpless cold rain in the morning and wind in the evening. Meow Xiao Meow sat gently. Her beautiful eyebrows were slightly knitted. Her eyes were as hazy as mist. Of course, the water grows east. Sigh. Meow Xiao Meow closed her eyes. Her heart was filled with endless bitterness. She didn't know why she felt so uncomfortable. Could it be that this short poem had expressed the most indescribable helplessness in life? It had even evoked the hidden emotions hidden in the deepest part of her heart? Wasn't she like a bright and beautiful flower that was in full bloom? But in this mortal world where the sun and moon flew by like a shuttle and time flowed by like a stream, there were even countless lechers secretly plotting against her. Even her own family had never truly planned for her own happiness. Even though she was talented, she was nothing more than a tool to be exchanged for greater benefits. Everyone knew that she was in a high position of power. As the daughter of the master of the Misty Mansion, I was pampered and should be living a carefree and happy life. But who knew the true sorrow of an aristocratic family? This was really helpless cold rain in the morning and wind in the evening. In such a harsh environment, how long could the life of this flower be? Once the flower withered, it would truly be the case of course, the water grows east. Could it be that this Mo June you was purposely making me cry? But after hearing his words, Why did the corners of my eyes turn moist and the tip of my nose turn sour? I actually couldn't control my emotions to this extent? I've already reached the realm above the supremacy stage. I'm only half a step away from the supremacy stage. Furthermore, with the effects of the exquisite lotus and the 7-colored holy fruit, my state of mind is stable, and nothing can affect me. I've long been able to control my emotions, but why am I losing control like this now? Miao Xiao Miao lowered her brows, her eyelashes fluttering slightly. Her heart was in a complete mess. Even she didn't know what was happening to her. She couldn't explain the cause or effect, but she felt an indescribable pain. 2 misses, it's getting late. If the two of you have nothing else to say, I'll be taking my leave. June Moxie was a quick-witted person. Seeing that he had gained enough today, he naturally had to stop while he was ahead. He didn't want to continue showing off. He swung his butt and was about to leave. If he continued showing off, then it wouldn't be worth anything. Wait, Brother Mo, please wait. Miao Xiao Miao's eyes instantly regained their calm. However, little Beansprout, who was at the side, had already started writing, recording down the 2 poems that June Dashao had just recited without missing a single word. June Moxie glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. He saw that this little lowly's fair and tender hands were holding onto the handle of the brush, and the brush was moving swiftly. It was actually a beautiful small regular script that was written very neatly. It seemed like she was quite experienced. Does Miss Miao have anything else to say? June Moxie stood still and looked at Miao Xiao Miao. He already knew that this little lass definitely didn't look for him to get to know him. There must be a follow-up. However, since the other party wasn't willing to explain first, he naturally wouldn't ask. If he took the initiative to ask, not only would he be at a disadvantage, but he would also be in a passive position. How could June Mo Xie do such a thing? It was obvious that he was being ripped off. The expression in Miao Xiao Miao's eyes flickered a few times. Finally, she focused and regained her previous clarity. She seemed to have made up her mind about something. She raised her head and looked at him, saying, Brother Mo, please don't blame Xiao Miao for speaking too deeply. May I ask if Brother Mo has offended anyone? Do you know how many people you've offended? Who have I offended? I've just arrived and am unfamiliar with the place and people. Who could I have offended? June Moxie scratched his head. He was a little confused by this sentence. He said, If I have to say who I've offended, it can only be young Master Gu. Didn't I offend young Master Gu Feiyu today? I've also offended the entire Gu clan. It's a big enough offense. I'm not talking about Gu Feiyu. I'm talking about before you came here. Miao Xiao Miao said. No. Absolutely not. I've never liked to cause trouble. If I didn't have the ability to cause trouble, why would I have offended anyone? June Moxie shook his head with certainty. He had wanted to mention those city officials, but on second thought, those people were really not high-class people. How could they attract the attention of Miao Xiao Miao? But other than that, he really didn't seem to have offended anyone. So Brother Mo really doesn't know? Miao Xiao Miao looked at him with a questioning gaze. After staring for a long time, she finally confirmed that this guy really didn't know about that matter. She couldn't help but laugh bitterly. She said slowly, The moment Brother Mo left the Misty Mansion's inner city, this news has already spread to all the clans. June Moxie raised his eyebrows. Miao Xiao Miao's words could be said to be a reminder. June Moxie naturally understood it immediately. Chao Guofeng's side had someone secretly leaking the news to the outside world. Otherwise, it definitely wouldn't have spread to all the clans. Yes, so many young masters acted at the same time. Almost at the same time, they all arrived at Heart Fantasy City. Miao Xiao Miao pursed her lips and smiled slightly. No wonder, the moment he came out today, he coincidentally met 2 people that he couldn't afford to offend. So that's why. I said my luck wouldn't be so good. Turns out that all of this was instigated and manipulated by someone. June Moxie sucked in a breath as if he had a toothache. Chapter 931. Meow Xiao Meow smiled lightly and said, "In this batch of people, there are some who will most likely become the future mistress of Heart Fantasy City, some who will become the future lord of the spiritual herbal gardens, some who will become the future members of the Elder's Cabinet, some who will become the future manor lord of the Misty Illusory Manor, and some who will become the future #1 expert, the guardian of the Misty Illusory Manor. And your unexpected arrival has disrupted the originally stable situation." Meow Xiao Meow's eyes turned serious as she looked at June Moxie and said slowly. Although she spoke slowly, June Moxie understood what was hidden in her words. He had fallen into a huge barrel of gunpowder, and had become the target of public criticism. The free and natural physique that you possess is a miraculous talent that has only appeared in the last 10,000 years. Attaching yourself to the Misty Illusory Manor is naturally a blessing for the Misty Illusory Manor. This is a fact, and no one can deny it. Even the seniors of the older generation believe that you will become the best candidate to support the future of the Misty Illusory Manor. But at the same time, you have become the strongest competitor of all the factions. You will stand on the opposite side of everyone, especially those young people. It is one thing for them to acknowledge your talent and qualifications, but it is another thing to truly acknowledge your position. Meow Xiao Meow's slender body was unusually straight. From June Moxie's perspective, her entire body was like a flawless jade sculpture. Every single aspect was perfect to the extreme. Even the most picky artist would not be able to find a single flaw when faced with the current Meow Xiao Meow. But her words struck June Daxiao's heart one by one. So, from the day you arrived, one thing was already fated. That is, no matter what you do, there will be many people watching you, and they will definitely not let you complete your task easily. Only by stepping on you will others have the chance to ascend to the top. Otherwise, on their path of advancement, you will definitely be blocking their way. Before you truly reach the peak of the Misty Mansion, this kind of challenge is everywhere. Anytime, anywhere. Meow Xiao Meow said solemnly. June Moxie covered his forehead with his hand and almost cried out in pain. Naturally, he did not care about the strength of these people, but the problem was being watched by them. How was he going to successfully reach his destination, the mysterious spiritual herbal garden, and obtain the rainbow holy fruit tree? This was really bad. Was he going to be targeted to death by that group of wretches? Let's not talk about the future first. Let's just talk about today. Because of your excursion today, as long as the young talents of the Misty Mansion's upper echelons can make it in time, I believe that they are all gathered in Heart Fantasy City right now. Wait until tomorrow, I believe there will be even more people coming. Meow Xiao Meow smiled mysteriously and said, "To be frank, this also includes me. Although I am also a person with intentions, I do not have evil intentions, because I will not fight with you for anything. If I really want something, even you, young Master Mo, will not be able to snatch it away. Today's invitation is only out of curiosity towards young Master. To be able to attract the attention of so many powerful families the moment he appeared, what kind of person is he?" After saying that, Meow Xiao Meow seemed to be at the behest of her own thoughts as she suddenly explained. After explaining, she remembered, "Why did I explain it like this? Why does it feel like I'm demonstrating to him, and also like I'm purposely using this method to show my aloofness, to show that I'm on the same starting line as him, but I'm obviously afraid that he will misunderstand, and why am I afraid that he will misunderstand? What am I thinking?" The more she thought about it, the more confused she became, and her face inexplicably blushed. "I see. No wonder Fantasy Heart City is so lively today, and tomorrow will be even more lively than today." June Moxie smiled casually, feeling a little proud in his heart, thinking, A coquettish person is indeed a coquettish person. No matter where I go, I will always be the center of attention. I've just arrived and I've already increased the flow of people here. I really admire myself. What is called ability, isn't this ability? Young master coming out today, with Holy Emperor Chao's wisdom, he definitely would not have thought of this point. But he did not stop you from going out. Miao Xiao Miao said, because Elder Chao knows that you will have to come out sooner or later. Sooner or later, you will have to blend into the environment of this misty mansion, so it's better to let you come out earlier to accept it. If you don't experience wind and rain, how can you see the rainbow? It's better to prepare early, so that you won't be caught unprepared in the future. So he chose to follow behind you, but did not show himself. Then he has clearly gone back now, but there are still so many unresolved issues. What should I do? There are so many people who don't like me. Won't it be hard for me to keep my life? June Moxie was stunned. Young master, you must be joking. The second most famous person in the Misty Mansion is not to be trifled with. He has already suffered a terrible loss in your hands, and is almost in a precarious situation. What else does Holy Emperor Chao have to worry about? Moreover, those people will only use certain methods to humiliate you, to prove that they are stronger than you. They will definitely not dare to kill you. Holy Emperor Chao can naturally go back with peace of mind. Miao Xiao Miao said, but her face became redder and redder. The reason why Chao Guofeng went back was that he was more assured of this disciple of his, but the main reason was, June Moxie was now together with Miao Xiao Miao. Miao Xiao Miao would definitely not let June Dashao risk his life and leave by himself. This was because she was responsible for the important task of investigating this peerless super genius on behalf of her father and grandfather, and this so-called investigation was not only about his aptitude, but also his temperament, his way of doing things, including all personal qualities. Great prodigy Mo's aptitude had long been determined, so there was no need to investigate further. This investigation was the real purpose of Miao Xiao Miao's invitation. And Mo Jun Yi being together with Miao Xiao Miao naturally had its advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage was that those who originally didn't like him would dislike him even more. The original plan would be even more vicious, and would even attract more enemies who didn't like him because of this. But the benefits were not small. Establishing a relationship with young Miss Miao was undoubtedly equivalent to having a protective talisman. And with Miao Xiao Miao around, no matter how much the enemies hated this free and natural physique possessor, and what kind of dirty tricks they had planned beforehand, they could only be used in the dark. If they were to be used in the open and Miao Xiao Miao went back and reported them, then no matter who it was, they would have to bear the consequences. And with the way June Moxie dealt with Gu Fei Yu previously, Holy Emperor Chao felt that there were really not many people in Misty Mansion who could make things difficult for this young master. So he could go back to sleep with his heart at ease. If you really want to establish your position in Misty Mansion, you have to get through this obstacle, and you have to rely on your own strength to get through it. You will always be relying on external forces, and those people will definitely not give up. Miao Xiao Miao said seriously. Oh? I still have to rely on my own strength? Damn it, then. I wonder what kind of feast those young masters have prepared for a country bumpkin like me? June Moxie asked interestedly. Miao Xiao Miao smiled mysteriously and said, I don't intend to tell you, young Master Mo. After all, asking me for information is also an indication of relying on external forces. Anyway, you will know when the time comes. But I can remind you first, the place you are going to next can be said to be a gathering of heroes. Although Gu Fei Yu was known as the second most untouchable person in the misty illusory manner, but that was merely because he was supported by others. And in the end, he was just a loner, and he had an obvious weakness in his personality. Defeating him was not a difficult matter. But what you are going to deal with next is a group with considerable influence and strength. In this group, there are all sorts of people who are top-notch in zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, xian, martial arts, and almost everything. It is almost impossible for you to defeat all of them with your own strength, unless there really is a miracle in this world. A strange look of worry flashed in Miao Xiaomiao's eyes. Before she came here, her thoughts were actually no different from those people. She also wanted to see this free and natural physique person make a fool of himself, but now she had endless hope that June Moxie would win and achieve that impossible miracle. For some reason, she was extremely unwilling to see him make a fool of himself, and even more unwilling to see him being humiliated by others. Just thinking of that scene made her feel uncomfortable. This change in attitude was very abrupt. Even she herself was surprised. She felt a heartfelt fear at the thought that suddenly appeared in her heart. She didn't understand what was going on. What was wrong with her, who was usually calm and indifferent, that she could actually talk and laugh with a strange man like this today? So troublesome. But do I really have to defeat them? Why should I defeat them? June Moxie curled his lips in disdain. It's not like I have nothing better to do? Why should I go over and defeat them? Not only will it take a lot of effort, I will also offend a large group of people, and there are no benefits at all. Such a stupid thing, why would I do it? Do you think I'm an idiot? Miao Xiaomiao was stunned. In her knowledge, as long as someone raised a challenge, no matter if it was out of pride or to vent their anger, there was no reason to avoid it. They had to accept the challenge. But she had never imagined that this free and natural physique person in front of her would actually reject it so decisively. A single word of rejection had completely blocked off this path of escape. That's right, you guys came with such a grand momentum, obviously intending to bully me with numbers. Since I can't afford to offend you, why can't I avoid it? The disparity in strength between both sides was already too great, completely incomparable. You guys want to bully me with numbers, coming with such a ferocious aura. Could it be that I'm not allowed to escape? If I really went up to accept the challenge, that would be a fool. These words are not bad. Miao Xiaomiao's eyes instantly widened, because she suddenly felt that Mo Junye's decision to avoid the challenge this time was not only not damaging to his reputation, but it was also the wisest decision. Chapter 932. If young master were to avoid the battle, it would be the right way to go. But this time, you have to go. Firstly, if you don't go, this group of people will be tricked by you. This is equivalent to breaking off all relations with all the successors of the aristocratic families who are attending today. This crack won't be easily mended in the next few decades. This will undoubtedly be a huge shackle to your long-term development. Miao Xiaomiao actually approved of his strategy of not going to the battle. But if he didn't go, he would offend too many people. The consequences would not be worth it. Furthermore, there is another reason why you have to go today. So this time, even though you know it is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, you still have to go. Of course, the process will not be too serious. Reason why I have to go? June Moxie frowned. What is the specific reason? Miss, please tell me. Do you remember the 2 guards who came out with you? They are the 2 in-name disciples of Holy Emperor Chao. You ordered them to kill the officials of the 8 cities. In the end, the 2 of them were arrested by Zhan Yushu on the charge of killing public officials. If you don't go, this charge will reach the upper echelons of the Misty Mansion, and they will be sentenced to death. Miao Xiaomiao said worriedly. No matter what, you were the one who gave the order. If you don't go, and something happens to them because of this, I believe you will not be able to answer to Holy Emperor Chao. What is this? When did I order them to kill anyone? This is completely false slander. Since I didn't give the order, the 2 of them will be punished for killing people. Naturally, it has nothing to do with me? June Emosia laughed happily. A life for a life, and a debt to be repaid with money. This is a matter of course. There were still laws and regulations in the misty, illusory manner. With my ability, not to mention that I don't have that ability, even if I do, I can't obstruct justice. You must know that when a prince breaks the law, he will be punished the same as a commoner. As for an explanation to the holy Emperor Chao, how could it compare to an explanation to the laws of the Misty Mansion? Personally affecting the fairness of the law is equivalent to bending the law for personal gain. Saint Emperor Chao is also a reasonable person. What explanation would he want me to give? Mrs. Words are too preposterous. Could it be that the aristocratic families of the misty, illusory manor are used to being above the law? June Moxie lectured him earnestly and earnestly. He even raised an objection and directly questioned the nature of the Misty Mansion's aristocratic family. This accusation was too big. Miao Xiao Miao was dumbfounded. What was going on? Why was it that when this Mo Dashao said it, it was as if the universe had been turned upside down? Zhang Yushu and the rest thought that they had grasped a trump card, but who would have thought that this trump card was completely useless against June Moxie? That was not the end of it. They would be accused of ignoring laws and regulations. His words were too sharp and domineering, weren't they? Also, this fellow is too strange, the life and death of those two guards. Could it be that he really doesn't care about it at all? After all, the two of them were from the same sect. Could it be that this person's nature is actually so cold? Although those two were only Chao Guofeng's in-name disciples, they were still old men who had served by the holy Emperor Chao's side for decades. Even if they didn't work hard, they still worked hard. From the tone of this person, it seemed that he didn't care about their life and death at all. In fact, he even hoped that these two would be punished by the law and would be happy to see it happen. In that instant, Miao Xiao Miao suddenly felt an extreme sense of sorrow and disappointment. She actually felt that June Moxie's character was simply unforgivable. To actually be so heartless to such an extent. Miao Xiao Miao's pretty face flushed red and she angrily said, "Brother Mo, could it be that the lives of your two senior brothers are not worth your attention? Even if they didn't know you before this and had no friendship to speak of, there is still the face of the holy Emperor Chao. If something were to happen to them because you didn't do anything, how could you bear to do that?" June Moxie looked at her in surprise and said lightly, "Miss Miao, what's wrong with you? Why do you seem so agitated?" Miao Xiao Miao was stunned and immediately realized that she had lost her composure. What does it have to do with me whether or not the other party cares about it? I have never seen June Moxie before, and I don't have any friendship with those two guards. Why are you so anxious? For a moment, her face flushed red and she didn't know how to continue speaking. She lowered her head and stammered, but then raised her head again and looked at June Moxie with anger and disappointment. With Miao Xiao Miao's status and experience, she had already reached an extremely high level. Ordinary people were no more than ants to her. Even great master stage experts like Wang Ning and Li Jie were no more than ants to her. In fact, if this matter had happened to her, she would have very likely given up on the person who made the mistake out of concern for her own reputation. However, today, because of a single sentence from June Dashao, she was infuriated for no reason. It was really unusual. Miao Xiao Miao didn't realize that her anger was directed at the person and not the matter. At this moment, Miao Xiao Miao had an indescribable feeling. In fact, if June Moxie was really agitated and wanted to barge in without a care for anything else, Miao Xiao Miao would definitely be disappointed. She would stop him and even scold him. That is a dragon's pool and tiger's den. You don't know the inside story, and yet you still want to barge in. That's just asking to be humiliated. It's only the bravery of a common man. However, now that June Moxie had directly rejected her, Miao Xiao Miao felt equally uncomfortable in her heart. In fact, it was even more uncomfortable. No matter what, this person's way of doing things was too different from what she had imagined. However, what was she thinking in her heart? What did she want him to do? She couldn't make up her mind. His way of doing things was obviously very reasonable, so why did she feel uncomfortable? Was it purely because of his cold personality? It was like seeing a treasure that was supposed to be perfect, but suddenly had a little flaw. This was a heart-wrenching feeling, these two people. Although we are from the same sect in name, after I came to this realm, they— June Moxie thought for a while and explained indifferently. Really want me to die immediately. Although I don't lack hot-bloodedness and courage, and am also very concerned about these reasons, I feel that it's not worth it for me to take such a huge risk to save these two people. So I won't go. How can that be? You are the owner of the free and natural physique, the disciple that Holy Emperor Chao has always dreamed of. Miao Xiao Miao had only said half a sentence when she suddenly understood and said, I understand now. If that's the case, it's indeed not worth it to take the risk for them. Although June Moxie didn't say it very clearly, everyone knew that the two of them had always hoped to be the true inheritor of Chao Guofeng's legacy for tens of years. Now that June Moxie had come, he had immediately snatched away this spot, shattering the hopes of the two of them. If one were to say that there wasn't any hatred, even Miao Xiao Miao herself wouldn't believe it. What a smart young lady. Good girl. June Moxie praised casually. Miao Xiao Miao rolled her eyes at him, but a warm and comfortable feeling rose in her heart. Miao Xiao Miao used her slender hands to pinch herself, thinking in her heart, it's just a very ordinary compliment and it's just a tease. What are you so happy about? What's wrong with me today? Why are my emotions fluctuating so strangely? However, the warm and satisfied feeling in her heart couldn't help but rise up from the bottom of her heart. It was completely out of her control. Then what on earth are you going to do next? Miao Xiao Miao tried to restrain her emotions, but she still couldn't. The beautiful eyebrows outside the veil slightly bent. What's next? I'm not going to do anything. Of course I'll go home and sleep after playing. June Moxie opened his eyes wide in surprise. It seems that I have nothing to do with it. What am I going to do there? Miao Xiao Miao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The Misty Mansion had almost changed because of him, and he had nothing to do with it? This sentence was really enough to make people tremble and want to laugh. His mood swings seemed to be more frequent than in a month or even a year. Help, what's wrong with me? Brother Mo's way of doing things is unfathomable and untraceable. This little sister is really speechless. Miao Xiao Miao smiled helplessly and said, if that's the case, then it's up to Brother Mo. But this time, this little sister is going to borrow Brother Mo's power to take advantage of you. Using me to take advantage of you? June Moxie nervously looked at himself up and down and said, but I don't know who Miss Miao is using me to take advantage of. Isn't it because of today's matter? We've made a bet before. If Brother Mo doesn't go, this little sister will luckily win. Miao Xiao Miao smiled slightly, as if she didn't mind June Dashao's double entendre. Bet? What bet? What kind of bet? June Moxie was even more curious. In another 5 days, it'll be the opening day of the Elixir Garden every 100 years. At that time, all the seniors of the Misty Mansion will be there. Only on this day will the seniors be allowed to search for the spiritual herbs they need in the Elixir Garden. The rainbow holy tree in the Elixir Garden sprouts once every 100 years, and blossoms once every 500 years. On this day, the rainbow holy tree will also bloom on this day. We need to gather all the power of the Holy Emperor to gather the spiritual energy of the Elixir Garden and try to cultivate the young tree, Miao Xiao Miao said lightly. And this time, there will be one person from the younger generation who will enter. And this person will have to strive for the approval of the holy tree. If they are compatible, this person will be the next owner of the Elixir Garden. If they are not compatible on the spot, for the next 100 years, this person will be able to enter once every year. As for the time after 5 days, there will be 2 people competing for this spot. It's me and the Zhan family's eldest young master, Zhan Qingfeng. Meow Xiao Meow smiled and said, "Our bet is that whoever loses will give up the opportunity to enter the elixir garden and give the spot to the other party." "I see." June Moxie took a deep breath, and his eyes became serious. Chapter 933. And what I'm betting on is that this time, their plan will not succeed. Meow Xiao Meow smiled. "Since you've already decided not to go, even if they have 1,000 brilliant plans, they will fail because they don't have a target to use them on. Naturally, their plan will not succeed. So, as long as you don't go, it means that I'm definitely going to win. The bet between Zhan Qingfeng and me was made in front of so many people. There's no room for him to go back on his word. This means that he's lost this chance forever. And in the next 100 years, I'll have the chance to enter the spiritual herbal gardens once every year. Even if I don't get the approval of the holy tree this time, I'll still have at least 100 chances. So, I'll feel a little disappointed that you're not going this time. But I still have to thank you," Meow Xiao Meow said. After saying this, she prepared to take her leave. "Wait." June Moxie jumped up as if he'd been injected with chicken blood. "Who said that I'm not going? Where are they? Bring me there." "Huh!" Meow Xiao Meow stared at him with her mouth agape. "What's this fellow up to again? With this young master's capabilities, how can I lose to them? Bring me there. Watch me beat them into a sorry state. I don't want Miss Meow to be disappointed." Meow Xiao Meow staggered, her eyes wide and mouth agape in anger. In that moment, she was at a loss for words. Just what kind of person is this fellow? Can he even understand human language? Meow Xiao Meow really didn't know what to say about this Master Dashao anymore. She'd clearly told him that as long as he followed his original plan and went home to sleep and not go on that whatever date, she'd win. And from his original intentions, it was already inevitable that he wouldn't go. Anyway, no matter what, she'd definitely won this bet. Therefore, although Meow Xiao Meow felt regretful, she was also somewhat happy. Meow Xiao Meow's interest in this free and natural physique cultivator had been piqued after gaining a preliminary understanding of his courage, literary talent, and eloquence. Naturally, she wanted to find out what other abilities this person had. In her impression, this Mo Junyi was like a dense fog that no one could see through. The more she knew about him, the more she felt he was unfathomable, and he seemed to be hiding countless secrets, and every single one of them was worthy of her being amazed, and pleasantly surprised. At least in Misty Mansion, there would not be a second Mo Junyi. The appearance of this person overturned all of Meow Xiao Meow's previous understanding of the word young talent. Especially the poem that he had casually uttered, every sentence was so enchanting. Every sentence would make one ponder for a long time, unable to extricate themselves from it. She even had a strange feeling that if she poured a cup of fragrant tea and sat quietly under a flowering tree on an afternoon when the sun was setting, looking at the clouds in the sky, thinking about the perfect poem that Mo Junyi had uttered, she would be able to waste an entire afternoon just like that. It was really too beautiful, too desolate, too helpless, and too in line with the mood of a young lady. If he didn't show up for this date, she would undoubtedly lose the chance to dig out more of his secret. It was inevitable that she would regret it. As for the happy part, if he really went, the people at Zhan Yushu's side were all not easy to deal with. No matter how talented he was ultimately alone, and his Xian Qi level was too limited. If those people used this as a breakthrough point to humiliate him, they would have plenty of ways to do so. If that was the case, she wouldn't know how worried she would be. If he didn't go, he would be spared from this humiliating scene. To him, this was naturally the best result. Meow Xiao Meow was absolutely unwilling to see such a talented young talent being tormented by a bunch of profligate young masters like Dashao. So she would rather Mo Junyi not go. Of course, on the other hand, Jun Dashao not going and putting up a fight against Zhan Yushu had also given Miao Xiaomiao the opportunity to become the spiritual herbal gardens lord in the future. It could be said to be a win-win situation, but now this fellow had suddenly changed his plan, and it was when she had happily told him that she had won and obtained the chance to enter the spiritual herbal gardens that was held once in 100 years. But he had suddenly changed his mind. There was no sign at all. What the hell was this? This sudden turn of events caused Miao Xiaomiao to grit her teeth so hard that they were about to break. Could it be that because of her previous warning, he had realized his mistake and turned back? Even if you beat Miao Xiaomiao to death, she wouldn't believe this possibility. I think this fellow simply couldn't bear to see me win, right? She couldn't help but hatefully say, "Are you seeking death?" Jun Moxie said proudly, "Miss, you think too highly of those so-called aristocratic young masters. What can those trash do to me? In my eyes, they don't even have the qualifications to compete with me." However, what young lady just said changed my mind. If you are the only one entering the elixir garden, you will be surrounded by old men. Young lady is as beautiful as a flower and has a heavenly fragrance. Facing so many old men all day long, how lonely would that be? So, I thought, why don't I accompany you in? What? You want to accompany me in? Miao Xiaomiao was stunned to the extreme. How did he know that the spiritual herbal gardens was boundless and desolate? And he actually thought of accompanying me. That's right, I plan to accompany you in. We can take care of each other, at least it won't be so boring. Speaking of the spiritual herbal gardens, I love the smell of spiritual herbs the most. In fact, I also like to cultivate some medicinal herbs in my daily life. Every time I enter that kind of environment, I feel especially relaxed and happy. Jun Moxie spoke without thinking. In order to win people's trust, he would resort to all sorts of means. Your way of thinking is interesting. With a great talent like you by my side, it can indeed relieve a lot of boredom. But the spiritual herbal gardens have their own rules. The restriction for the younger generation is that only one person can enter the spiritual herbal gardens at a time. Miao Xiaomiao said worriedly. Also, the Rainbow Holy Tree is very strict when it comes to selecting candidates. Apart from the candidate's age, the candidate must be below 20 years old and have a fresh aura that is close to nature. If too many people enter, I'm afraid that the holy tree won't be able to tell. Jun Moxie's spirit was lifted. He said, "According to what you said, this rainbow holy tree already has its own consciousness. It has become a spiritual being with consciousness?" That's the truth. However, the rainbow holy tree's consciousness grows very slowly. According to my grandfather, the rainbow holy tree started to have its own consciousness 3,000 years ago. It has the most basic spirituality, but until now its consciousness is still equivalent to a 5 or 6-year-old child. It can only act according to its own likes and dislikes, and it can't move freely. Sometimes, if it bears a holy fruit, and someone it doesn't like goes to pick it, it will hide the holy fruit. Just like a child acting shamelessly. When Miao Xiaomiao talked about the rainbow holy tree, her tone was as if she was talking about her mischievous child. Even the older generation who enter the Misty Mansion's spiritual herbal garden to collect spiritual herbs are not allowed to step into the 100-mile radius around the rainbow holy tree. If one steps in without permission, all the spiritual herbs in the area will wither at the same time. Only when it is willing to split its branches and is allowed to be transplanted, all the seniors in the Misty Mansion will gather all their profound energy to communicate with it. Only then will they be able to split a branch from the bottom. Then, the younger generation will be allowed to be observed by the holy tree. If they are lucky enough to meet the requirements, this person will plant the branch within the 100-mile radius. In the future, the rainbow holy tree will take care of it. No one is allowed to interfere. It's actually so magical. Jun Moxie was dumbfounded. It seems like it's just a tree. How could it be so overbearing? That's right, otherwise why would it be worshipped as the holy tree by the Misty Mansion? Meow Xiao Meow sighed. But who set the rule that only one person from the younger generation is allowed to enter at a time? Can't there be any exceptions? June Moxie pondered for a while and asked. There will be no exceptions. According to the records, 1,500 years ago, the Misty Mansion once sent 2 young envoys into the spiritual herbal garden at the same time. However, this action was mercilessly chased away by the holy tree. This caused the spiritual herbal garden to be left unattended for the next 1,400 years. It was only until 100 years ago that my father coincidentally obtained the Rainbow Holy Tree's approval that he was able to take over the spiritual herbal garden again. This place can't be managed by the higher-ups of the Misty Mansion just because they appointed someone to manage it. This is because the space of the spiritual herbal garden is in fact the Rainbow Holy Tree's territory. If it doesn't agree, no matter who it is, they won't be able to stay inside. For example, although my father obtained the approval of the Rainbow Holy Tree and is currently in charge of the spiritual herbal garden, even my father can't take away anything from the spiritual herbal garden. I see, but how did your father obtain its approval? The more June Moxie listened, the more he felt that this tree was not simple. It's not a secret. All the elders of the Misty Mansion know that my father's aptitude was extremely weak at that time. He was recognized by the Misty Mansion as having a rubbish physique. He couldn't cultivate high-level qi at all. Even if he reached the lowest threshold of the Supreme Master, it was impossible for him to step into it. A sad smile appeared on Meow Xiao Meow's face, as if she was sad for her father's experience at that time. Even my grandfather, who had high hopes for my father, lost hope in him in the end. But at that time, my father unexpectedly fell seriously ill and was about to pass away. After all, he was my father's flesh and blood. Although my grandfather didn't like him very much, no one had been able to enter the spiritual herbal garden for 1,400 years. The spiritual qi inside was so thick that it was unimaginable. My grandfather used his authority to ask the elders to allow him to bring my father in and use the spiritual qi in the spiritual herbal garden to heal him. Because that area had been empty for 1,400 years, everyone had lost hope in that place. In addition, my grandfather was extremely popular, so he agreed to this matter. Chapter 934. Meow Xiao Meow said, I only know that after that, my father's fate changed drastically. From a trash that everyone looked down on, he became someone that everyone wanted to fawn over. Furthermore, his physique was also greatly improved. In the end, he was able to marry Mother. Until now, Father is still completely grateful to the Holy Tree. He still believes that if it wasn't for the tree, our family wouldn't be where we are today. Meow Xiao Meow smiled gently and said, Naturally, there wouldn't be me. Your father is really blessed by heaven. June Moxie already had a rough guess in his heart. This colorful holy tree must have gradually become a demon due to the long years. However, this kind of demon's temper was pure and genuine, especially when it had clear love and hate. It was at the age where a good person was a good person, and a bad person was a bad person. In addition, it never had anyone to guide it, so it did its own way. Slowly, it formed an almost extreme personality. As for Meow Xiao Meow's father, according to June Moxie's guess, it was just the tree's way of showing sympathy for the weak. The elixir garden has been reopened since then, and the Misty Mansion has regained the right to collect elixirs. However, because of the 1,400-year gap, no one dared to cross the line. Naturally, no one dared to let more suitable candidates enter the garden. Therefore, the idea of letting 2 people enter the garden at the same time is definitely not feasible. Meow Xiao Meow sighed. You don't have to make it sound so hopeless. Nothing is absolute in this world. I think that the holy tree may not reject more people entering the garden at the same time. The reason why it sealed the garden before was only because it didn't like some of the people who entered. Maybe we can try to let a few more people enter, and every time we enter the range of the holy tree, we can only let one person in to test the compatibility. If that person doesn't work, we can just let another person in. Wouldn't that increase our chances by several times? June Moxie said. What you said makes sense. Meow Xiao Meow hesitated and said, but we need to get the approval of the higher-ups of the Misty Mansion. In my opinion, the higher-ups of the Misty Mansion may not be willing to take this risk. That is what the Jean family has to worry about, June Moxie said confidently. And my challenge this time is to seize this opportunity. He looked at Meow Xiao Meow and said, if I don't accept the challenge, it is ultimately a sign of weakness. Since they put in so much effort to give me a difficult problem, why can I not give them the same? If they want to humiliate me and compete with me, I will give them a chance. But at the same time, however, they must also agree to this condition of mine. Only then will I agree to compete with them. Meow Xiao Meow Xiao Meow Xiao Meow 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 Xiao Meow. Meow Xiao Meow Xiao Zhang Meow 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 Xiao Meow Xiao 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 Meow You I You. Me Xiao Meow over Meow Xiao Meow that. I believe that now that the Jean family is the number one family in the Misty Mansion, it is not impossible for them to get this condition. June Moxie chuckled. If that's the case, isn't it a happy ending? Why do you only think in the positive direction? What if you lose? Meow Xiao Meow rolled her eyes and glared at him. This expression was indescribably charming. June Moxie looked at it and his heart skipped a beat. He suddenly thought of Dugu Xiaoyi and thought to himself, this girl's eyes are actually so cute and pretty, almost like my Dugu Xiaoyi. If I lose, naturally I will be humiliated by them. Also, according to the previous agreement, if I lose, it means that you lose too. Both of us will lose the chance to enter the spiritual herbal gardens. June Moxie chuckled and said, if it's really that bad, then I can only count it as me burdening you once. His expression suddenly turned serious and he asked slowly, Miss Meow, are you willing to be burdened by me once? Or should I say, are you willing to trust me? Meow Xiao Meow blushed and said, you said it too lightly. If you win, everything will be fine and everyone will be happy. But if you lose, you will lose my qualifications as well. This is equivalent to destroying my lifelong happiness. This bet is equivalent to betting my entire life, but you won't have much to lose. Betting your entire life? Why would I bet your entire life? Isn't this a little exaggerated? June Moxie said in surprise. Since we are fated to meet, you will know some things sooner or later. So, I might as well make it clear. Right now, the Meow family's influence in the Misty Mansion has been declining day by day. For many generations, there has not been a single outstanding talent. Although there are many seniors of the Meow family who are still serving in the Misty Illusory Manor, they are already very old. So, the position of the next Manor Lord of the Misty Illusory Manor will most likely not fall to our Meow family. In fact, if my father had not coincidentally gained the favor of the Holy Tree over 100 years ago and become the host of the spiritual herbal gardens, I'm afraid the Meow family would have declined a long time ago. Meow Xiao Meow sighed lightly, a trace of worry in her eyes. If the position of Manor Lord of the Misty Illusory Manor is really taken away by another family, then in order to maintain the balance of power in the Misty Illusory Manor, especially to ensure that the reputation of our Meow family is not tarnished, the elders of our family will make the decision to marry me to the successor with the most potential. This will achieve a situation where both sides balance each other and benefit each other, silently waiting for the opportunity for the Meow family to make a comeback. Although I seem to be doted on by thousands of people now, if it comes to that, I can only be reduced to a sacrifice for the family. If I want to avoid the worst situation from happening, the only way is for me to take over my father's position and become the next garden master of the spiritual herbal gardens. Only by relying on this special position can I escape this fate. I'll have a completely independent identity. Although I still can't marry, I can do whatever I want. It's better than marrying someone I don't like and suffering for the rest of my life. Meow Xiao Meow sighed faintly and her eyes were filled with loneliness. I don't want to become a sacrifice for the family, Meow Xiao Meow said softly. But I don't want to see the Meow family decline like this. I'm the Meow family's daughter after all. The only way to get the best of both worlds is to become the garden master of the spiritual herbal gardens. At that time, even the entire Misty Mansion won't dare to touch me and the Meow family. Although my father is now in charge of the spiritual herbal gardens in name, his starting point is too low and his foundation is greatly insufficient. His achievements in this life are already at the superior supreme level. And this limit means that my father's lifespan is only 200 to 300 years at the most optimistic estimate. Meow Xiao Meow's voice was very heavy. As a daughter, I shouldn't say this about my father. It's unfilial of me to say this. But this is the truth, an indisputable truth. My aptitude can be said to be the most outstanding among the Meow family's descendants in the past 1,000 years. Our Meow family can't wait for another 1,000 years. If then, we don't even need to wait for 1,000 years. The Meow family may very well disappear from the Misty Mansion. If I marry someone else, then the Meow family's hope will be severed. Even if we can use marriage to barely continue to be prosperous for a few hundred years, it's ultimately not a long-term plan. After all, the other party won't want our Meow family to rise again. But once I become the new garden master of the spiritual herbal gardens, with my aptitude, I now have the strength close to the venerable level. Coupled with the unique nourishment of the spiritual herbal gardens, it won't be a problem for me to break through to the saint level and become the holy emperor. In this way, my lifespan will at least be more than 1,000 years, or even 2,000 years. 3,000 years. In other words, I can protect our Meow family for thousands of years by myself, and I don't need to sacrifice my own life. June Moxie let out a long sigh. Now, this request of yours is equivalent to gambling with my entire life. It's equivalent to gambling with the future of our Meow family and the lives of thousands of people. Meow Xiao Meow's eyes looked at June Moxie. It was unknown what the meaning in her eyes was. Her pearly white teeth gently bit her lips, and her eyes flickered, constantly changing. She seemed worried and happy, angry and angry. June Moxie was momentarily speechless. To him, this decision was nothing more than a game. In fact, it was an extremely boring game. But to Meow Xiao Meow, it was a decision with far-reaching implications. Although June Daxiao had absolute confidence, with his level and experience, he was confident that no matter how these fellows tried to make things difficult for him, he would still be able to win easily. No matter how outstanding these fellows from the Misty Mansion were, no matter how stupid he was, they would still be no match for the 5,000 years of splendid Chinese civilization on Earth. June Moxie's victory was within his grasp. However, his current identity as Mo Junyi did not give him any sense of security at all. Even if he said that he was confident, others would only think that he was bragging. Even if you're the owner of the free and natural physique, with extraordinary talent, but your own strength has not reached a level that would make others look at you. What right do you have to make others gamble with you for life, or even the fate of your entire family? June Moxie chuckled and said, "It's indeed my wishful thinking. Miss, please don't blame me, just treat it as if I didn't say anything. Actually, if I think about it carefully, there's always someone better out there. Who knows, those young masters who set up the trap might have really set up some unsolvable trap. If I lose, wouldn't it be even more embarrassing? I'll just go home and sleep. It's good for both of us." He laughed dryly and was about to leave. As June Moxie said these words, he didn't feel the slightest bit of regret in his heart. This matter was originally just a whimsical thought on a whim. If he really made use of a young lady's happiness and the fate of her family to gamble, even if he won the gamble and obtained the 7-colored holy fruit, the consequences would be something that no one would be able to accept, because in this gamble, Miao Xiao Miao's position was that of his accomplice. There was no way to deny it. At that time, what was Miao Xiao Miao going to do? That would be equivalent to destroying Miao Xiao Miao. In this life, would he still be able to live with his conscience? In the way he did things, he had always been resolute, with a clear conscience. But at this moment, he really didn't dare to say that he had a clear conscience. Wait! Miao Xiao Miao sucked in a deep breath and shouted resolutely. Chapter 935. Miao Xiao Miao looked at June Moxie and suddenly smiled like a spring flower. Of course, I don't wish to use my entire life to gamble with you. I also won't use my entire family to gamble with you. But the matter of whether young master is going or not has nothing to do with me. Why must young master be controlled by me and act according to my wishes? What do you mean? June Moxie looked at her. He really couldn't figure it out. What I mean is, if you want to go, then go. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Regardless of whether you decide to go or not, this matter has nothing to do with me. A mischievous look flashed past Miao Xiao Miao's eyes. But based on what Miss has said, if I lose, that bet you mentioned earlier will also be lost to Zhan Qingfeng. June Moxie frowned. Although you didn't participate in it personally, the result is no different from whether you participated or not. Why bother? I'd rather not gamble than risk the things that others value the most. June Moxie's face was full of seriousness and solemnity as he said word by word. Regardless of victory or defeat, the consequences are not something I can afford to bear. To me, your Miao family may be insignificant in my heart, but the life of a young lady is not something I can afford to gamble with. This favor, I can't afford to bear it, much less repay it. June Moxie was speaking from the bottom of his heart. This kind of responsibility, he really couldn't afford to bear it. If he lost, Miao Xiao Miao's life would be ruined. Although June Daxiao believed that he wouldn't lose, even if he won, the result might not be good for Miao Xiao Miao. His true identity was ultimately the enemy of Misty Mansion. The moment his identity was exposed, it was very likely that Miao Xiao Miao and the entire Miao family would be implicated. Furthermore, it was very likely that the heart of a young lady would be implicated. This favor was something that he would never be able to repay in his entire lifetime. Although in June Moxie's heart, he didn't think that young Master Zhan, who had made a bet with Miao Xiao Miao, might actually fulfill his promise, and Miao Xiao Miao would most likely not get the spot just like that. He still didn't want to force it, but if you really choose not to go, then you will definitely have a hard time in the Misty Mansion. Your future is destined to be bleak. Miao Xiao Miao looked at him. Actually, as long as I find a way to cancel the bet between me and Zhan Qingfeng, you won't have to bear any responsibility. Cancel? June Moxie frowned. The bet has been set. How can I cancel it? I have my own plan. As long as young Master Mo cooperates with me and temporarily disappears for 2 hours, I will naturally be able to cancel this bet. Miao Xiao Miao smiled mysteriously. In fact, I even want Zhan Qingfeng to owe me a huge favor. Ha ha! How intelligent was June Moxie? He instantly understood what she meant and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Shaking his head, he said, "Brilliant plan, it is indeed a brilliant plan. Since the agreement has been set, let's split up immediately. Let's meet again at Drifting Fragrance Lodge later." Miao Xiao Miao blinked her eyes and smiled mischievously. June Moxie smiled casually and said, "Mrs. Intelligence is truly outstanding. I have always prided myself on my intellect, but Miss managed to find a way to solve this problem before I did. I am ashamed of my inferiority. Brother Mo was just confused by the situation just now. As the saying goes, being overly concerned makes one confused. Worrying too much naturally leads to inadequacy. That's why he didn't think of it. I believe that with young master's intelligence, as long as you calm down, you will be able to easily figure out the whole situation. Miao Xiao Miao revealed a smile in her eyes. A trace of shyness flashed across her eyes, but it disappeared quickly. She was obviously very pleased. May I ask, Brother Mo, I can understand what you said earlier. I cannot afford to gamble with a lady's life. But what do you mean by this favor? I cannot afford to bear it, much less repay it? It's just a momentary sigh. There's no other meaning. June Moxie smiled awkwardly. If he said it out loud, wouldn't he be thinking too much? Miao Xiao Miao seemed to have thought of something. Her face flushed red, then turned pale. Biting her lips, she said, then, Brother Mo, see you at Drifting Fragrance Lodge. See you at Drifting Fragrance Lodge. June Moxie smiled and cupped his hands. Before I leave, I'll give you a word of advice. The so-called bet should only start when it's absolutely fair. But there are too many people who will only acknowledge their debts when the other party is extremely strong. Lady Miao, don't take this bet too seriously. I know. But with the status of these people, they shouldn't be able to do such a thing, right? Miao Xiao Miao said uncertainly. Some people's promises are worth 1,000 gold. But some people, even if they swear, it's like farts. This isn't surprising. June Moxie chuckled. I'm just saying casually. Lady, you should know better than me. Brother Mo is too polite. No matter what, I still have to thank you for your reminder. Miao Xiao Miao smiled and brought little Beansprout downstairs. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, she paused, but didn't turn back. Her delicate figure was graceful and her skirt fluttered. She disappeared in an instant, leaving behind a wisp of fragrance that lingered for a long time. When Miao Xiao Miao was walking down the street, she clearly heard a pause sound coming from upstairs. It was very clear and loud. It was as if a loud slap had landed on someone's face. Her eyes strangely reddened and she quickly left. That sound was actually June Moxie slapping himself harshly on the face. He stood there in disappointment for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said, "So I'm really quite shameless." He let out a long sigh, an unprecedented sense of guilt flashed in his eyes. His figure flashed and he disappeared in an instant. The most luxurious place in Fantasy Heart City, Drifting Fragrance Restaurant, was currently filled with people. The originally extremely luxurious restaurant was now even more grand. Originally, it was a hotel room by room, but now all of them were connected. It was connected in all directions, forming a huge hall that could at least accommodate 1,000 people. Looking up, all one could see was black hair fluttering in the wind, and young faces reflecting each other. Everyone's faces were filled with indignation, and their eyes were filled with excitement and eagerness. Once that free and natural physique person arrived, everyone would immediately attack him together. No matter how outstanding his talent was, in today's Drifting Fragrance Restaurant, they would definitely make him come here with a bitter face and go back crying his heart out. In the middle of the floor, there was a circle of young masters. All of them had handsome faces, tall and handsome, and there wasn't a single ugly melon to be seen. And outside of this small circle of young masters were the guards of the various families. Although they weren't close to their masters, they weren't too far away either. There definitely wouldn't be any danger here, but as guards, they still didn't dare to be careless. After all, there had just been a shocking piece of news. Young Master Gu Fei Yu had gone alone because he had underestimated the enemy. Although the details were still unknown, the result was that he was put in a life-and-death situation by that free and natural physique person. Even his grandfather, Gu Yunyang, had personally tried to save him, but it didn't have much effect. It was said that he was still in a miserable state, half dead. Such a shocking truth had already appeared, and everyone understood that today's meeting would definitely not be as simple as it seemed. There would probably be danger at every turn. If something really happened to Little Master under their protection, then other than being hanged, there wouldn't be a second path for them. Of course, there were exceptions. Wang Neng and Li Jie, the two supreme martial artist experts, were currently being held under the pillar, their faces bitter. Time slowly passed, and it seemed like that kid was really afraid that he wouldn't come. If that was the case, wouldn't the two of them become scapegoats? A punching bag for those young masters to vent their anger? If he didn't come, that bunch of young masters would have no target to target after setting up such a huge formation. Their anger would definitely be vented on the two of us. Damn it. Time continued to get late, but no one came. The various young masters had already covered the entire street with their eyes. With such a large number of manpower, there was naturally a continuous stream of news. Young Miss Miao seems to be negotiating with Mo Junyi. Young Miss Miao is trying her best to persuade Mo Junyi to come along. Young Miss Miao and Mo Junyi are still at their original position, but young Miss Miao seems to be extremely angry, as if Mo Junyi said he wanted to go home to sleep, and is not willing to care about the lives of his two subordinates. Young Miss Miao has already gone downstairs, but that Mo Junyi has not. He's still upstairs. There's no one upstairs now. We don't know where that kid has gone. Not on the east side. Nothing on the west side. Nothing. Following the reports, the faces of the young masters slowly turned violent. He actually dares to ignore so many of us. One must know that the Misty Mansion is not something that a single free and natural physique person can support. And all of us represent the backbone of the entire Misty Mansion in the future. You actually have the guts to stand all of us up. If all the great families were to work together, even the Manor Lord of the Misty Mansion would not be able to withstand such a huge pressure. Mo Junyi, do you still want to live in this world? I originally only wanted to play with you, but you're actually so untactful. Even if you manage to hide today, let's see how you hide in the future. With so many of us working together, we'll definitely toy with you to death. Big brother, that kid has probably slipped away. Zhan Yushu, who was known as the #1 youth of the Misty Mansion who must not be provoked, sat on a chair and spoke to the young man sitting in the middle. If he really becomes a coward and doesn't come here, then the bet between you and young Miss Miao will be considered a loss. Could it be that you're really willing to give up the slot just like that? It's not worth it at all. The young man sitting at the head of the table had handsome features and a well-defined face. His eyes were as calm as the abyss, as if there was no end to them. This was the #1 youth of the Zhan family, and also Zhan Yushu's blood brother, Zhan Qingfeng. He smiled lightly and said, "It's still early now, and it's not even midnight yet. Why do you say that young Master Mo won't be coming? The bet between young Miss Miao and I is a matter between us. What are you so anxious about? Yushu, when it comes to the ability to maintain your composure, you still need to practice it well. Being unsettled and easily angered is the greatest taboo of our generation." Chapter 936. Weakness? What weakness is it? Everyone asked in unison. When everyone heard about that matter, they were all shocked. Everyone had to look up to this person whom they had never met before, not daring to underestimate him. But right now, Zhan Qingfeng said that he had discovered this person's weakness. How could everyone not be shocked? That Mo Junyi's weakness is actually the same as all of you. It's a common problem for young people. He just can't keep his cool. Zhan Qingfeng smiled elegantly and raised his eyebrows slightly. The reason why I can't keep my cool is because I'm proud and arrogant. Most of these people would not allow themselves to retreat without a fight. Therefore, I believe that even though he knows there's a risk, he'll still come to the appointment. Even though he knew that he might be humiliated and beaten to the point that he couldn't have looked more miserable, he would still come. Zhang Qingfeng looked at everyone with a faint smile. If he really comes, don't say that he's stupid. Because the most important characteristic of a top expert is to dare to face everything. Especially now, I believe that the older generation is certain that we absolutely won't dare to kill him, and he himself also knows that. So, since there's no actual danger, why doesn't he come? But if he comes, I'm afraid today's humiliation will follow him for the rest of his life. I'm afraid he won't be able to raise his head in the world. The things that we've set up, even I, the one who set it up, shudder at the thought of it. Could it be that he really dares to come and take on all of this? Zhang Yushu looked at the luxurious line-up beside him with uncertainty as he pondered. Of course, if he didn't come today, then he wouldn't be a threat in the future, because this was fleeing without a fight. To an ordinary person, this was not a big deal. But to a cultivator who aimed to reach the peak, it was a huge inner demon. Every time he faces a challenge, he will probably think of it. If he comes, it will only be a temporary humiliation. Moreover, today's meeting might become the motivation for him to endure hardship. But if he doesn't come, it will be a humiliation that he will never be able to wash away. I will never forget this for the rest of my life. Zhang Qingfeng said seriously. So, he must come. I have to come. So, the bet between me and Miss Miao has not really started yet. Naturally, there's no such thing as giving up a spot. Zhang Qingfeng smiled and looked around. All of you must be alert. Today, we are about to exchange blows with a rare free and natural physique. Regardless of victory or defeat, today's meeting will definitely be a memorable event. That's right, seeing this free and natural physique crumbling under our torture, it is indeed a delightful sight. Zhang Yushu laughed. Not necessarily. Before coming here today, grandfather had once said this. People with the free and natural physique are all geniuses amongst geniuses in this world. No matter what he did or learned, he would be very fast. Therefore, Grandpa once told me something. All the youths held their breaths. This sentence is, no matter what happens to people with the free and natural physique, don't be surprised. Because, he had the free and natural physique. If he can't do those shocking things, then that would be truly shocking. Zhang Qingfeng said. That young Master Mo is definitely a powerful opponent. You must not let your guard down. Big brother, if that lad really passes the test, are you going to give up the slot or not? Zhang Yushu asked carefully. Give up? Why not? It's just a spot. Could it be that we really care about it? Zhang Qingfeng snorted coldly and said, A man must keep his word. Since he has lost, he must admit defeat. A man's words are trustworthy. A man without his words is not a man of his word. How can he stand in this world if he does not keep his word? But if that lass really enters the spiritual herbal gardens, if she becomes the spiritual herbal gardens lord, then I will have even less hope. Zhang Yushu looked at his big brother and begged. Big brother, such a precious slot, rather than giving it to an outsider, why don't you just give it to your little brother? Or we can just find a reason to reject that bet. Why so serious? How can such an important slot be decided by such a boring bet? This is too ridiculous. Bullsh *t. How is this bet boring? Zhang Qingfeng said angrily. Could it be that you are so sure that I will definitely lose? After saying that, he sighed. You only see beauty and nothing else. You when will you be able to see the big picture and become truly mature? Big picture? Zhang Yushu asked. Right now, although the younger generation of the Miao family is gradually declining, but among the older generation experts, the Miao family still occupies a considerable position in the Misty Mansion. Zhang Qingfeng said seriously. These people are not only shockingly powerful, they are also extremely patient. Zhang Yushu laughed heartily. But he was in awe of his big brother's careful choice of words. He was clearly scolding those people as old farts, but he had to say that they were very patient. This was truly scolding people without spitting out any vulgarities. Besides, if Mo Jun Yi really comes, although the outcome is still uncertain, our chances of winning are extremely high. However, our chances of winning are extremely high. We have at least a 90% chance of winning. Zhan Qingfeng spread out his fingers and curled one finger, causing the other 9 fingers to point straight forward. He looked at his fair fingers and said slowly, "But if he ends up in the end today, it's the same as not competing at all. Then naturally, the bet can only be fulfilled after the competition. So that's the case. Big Brother's way of doing things is truly brilliant. This little brother is filled with admiration." Zhan Yushu was enlightened. Coincidentally, at this moment, there was a commotion at the entrance, followed by silence. An almost fawning voice said, "To think that little sister Xiao Miao has graced us with your presence. Please come in and have a seat." Miao Xiao Miao's voice said, "What are you being so polite for? I can go in myself." Following that, an elegant fragrance wafted through the air. Miao Xiao Miao's slender figure had already walked into the hall. Looking at the situation, she couldn't help but laugh. Why is there such a big commotion? Isn't this making a big fuss over a minor issue? Even if everyone is very nervous about the bet, there is no need to go to such great lengths. Facing off against a rare free and natural physique possessor that only appears once in 10,000 years, naturally we have to choose the best venue. I believe that everyone would also be very careful. Zhan Qingfeng smiled warmly and said, "No matter who wins or loses, this is one of the rare opportunities to spar with a free and natural physique possessor. In these 10,000 years, there have only been 2 free and natural physiques. Little sister Xiao Miao, where is that prodigy with the free and natural physique? I heard that you guys were chatting together just now. Don't tell me that he doesn't dare to come?" Although Brother Zhan's guess is not too far off. After hearing that you guys have set up such a grand welcoming ceremony, that prodigy was so scared that he doesn't dare to come. Just now, I almost dragged him here by force, but that fellow would rather die than submit, insisting on going home to sleep. Even if he doesn't come, I can't not come. After all, I am also very interested in the welcoming ceremony here. As he said that, he pointed his finger at the surroundings of the hall and smiled lightly. This action was clearly saying that you guys had prepared for nothing. Even if you had prepared thousands of methods, is there any meaning without a target to execute them on? He's not coming? Although everyone was guessing whether the free and natural physique possessor would be scared to the point of not daring to come due to the sheer number of people gathered here, everyone had already come to a conclusion in their hearts. Honestly speaking, if they were in his shoes, they would definitely not come as well. It was too dangerous. But when they heard the news from Miao Xiao Miao's mouth, everyone's emotions were still stirred up. F***ck. This bastard. He's actually not coming anymore, is he still a man? Zhan Yushu's eyes flashed coldly as he said darkly, "So many of us are waiting here, and he's not coming just because he said he's not coming? What does he take us for? A target for him to toy with?" Zhan Yushu's words had successfully roused the anger of everyone present against a common enemy. Although they all understood the situation before them, and could even understand Mo Junye's choice, human nature had always been like this. It was fine to toy with others, but once it was their turn to be fooled, no matter what the other party's stance was, they would throw it to the back of their minds. Isn't that so? This damned Mo Junye thinks that he has the free and natural physique, and completely disregards us. Today's matter has humiliated us too much. We will definitely not let this matter rest. We will definitely not let him off easily. A youth in green said through gritted teeth. So what if he has the free and natural physique? With his trashy foundation, no matter how outstanding his talent is, his foundation is still too weak. At the very least, within 100 years, he will definitely not be able to catch up to us. In other words, we can at least trample on him for 100 years. A white-robed youth waved his fan and snorted. Even if he has the free and natural physique, in these 100 years, every day will feel like a year, and he will be treading on thin ice at all times. As for after 100 years, all of us here will already be in important positions. Even if he wants to take revenge, I believe he will have to weigh the pros and cons first. Even if he really dares to take revenge at all costs, no one will be willing to support him. This Mo Junyi, even if he can avoid today, can he avoid tomorrow, and the day after? Will he continue to avoid forever? Today's actions have already offended all the young talents in the Misty Mansion. It's extremely unwise. Zhang Qingfeng lowered his head and frowned slightly. Why won't he come? There's no reason. Why won't he come here? This matter is really very strange. Could it be that he's not afraid of planting a heart demon and suffering from a backlash in his future cultivation? This is incomprehensible. Could it be that he doesn't have the desire to become stronger? Chapter 937. But this was based on the premise that Mo Junye's cultivation was ordinary. How would Zhang Qingfeng know that Jun Dashao's cultivation had already reached an unimaginable level, and he did not even place the dragon's lair and tiger's lair that these young talents had set up in his eyes at all? This change was naturally out of Zhang Qingfeng's expectations, because no one would have thought that this seemingly trashy beginner Xianqi practitioner was actually a super expert in his bones. What's so hard to understand? Big Brother Zhan, when you consider a problem, you always analyze it from a rational point of view. And this time, it's clearly this Mo Junye's ingenuity. Haha! Another black-robed youth suddenly laughed. Ingenuity? What do you mean? Everyone asked together. I'm guessing that this prodigy with the free and natural physique, because his foundations are too trashy, he probably doesn't even know what the so-called heart demon is. Why would he be afraid of the backlash of the heart demon? The black-robed youth squinted his eyes and said, Heart demon is a kind of obstacle that will appear when one's cultivation reaches a certain level and one's strength increases. And his current level of Xianqi. He furrowed his brows and pretended to be in deep thought. I wonder if he's a golden Xian? Or a silver Xian? Or is it a 7th, 8th, or 9th level Xian? The moment he finished speaking, he directly clutched his stomach and burst out laughing. Everyone roared with laughter, and all of them were overjoyed. Obviously, they agreed. No, that's definitely not the case. Zhang Qingfeng raised his head and pondered deeply. Even if he really doesn't understand, how would Holy Emperor Chao not know? With the old man's cultivation, the first lesson he taught his disciple would be to inform him of all the things about the devil sect. Besides, there are still 2 of his companions here. He said he wouldn't come, and his life is in our hands. But he said he wouldn't come. This matter is really hard to understand. There must be another reason behind it. As for what the reason is, I'm not interested in guessing. However, young Master Zhan, it's time to end the bet we made earlier. Miao Xiao Miao said Lengling. She didn't know why, but when she looked at these young talents from the Misty Mansion, she suddenly felt disgusted. There was no exception. He even felt more and more that these people were all so shallow. Compared to Mo Junyi, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Bet? Zhang Qingfeng was deep in thought when he suddenly heard her words. He couldn't help but be taken aback for a moment before raising his head. That's right. The content of our bet was that you wouldn't succeed in humiliating him. Now, since he didn't come here, it doesn't matter what the reason is, he didn't come. That means you guys have failed. Since that's the case, I should be the winner. That's probably it. Miao Xiao Miao said with a smile. Little sister Xiao Miao's words are interesting. The bet hasn't even officially started. How can you say that you've won? Before Zhang Qingfeng could say anything, Zhan Yushu had already spoken up with a cold smile. Besides, it's Mo Junyi who stood us up today. It's not like we're trying to go back on our words. It's still too early for little sister Xiao Miao to say that you've won. Stood us up? Miao Xiao Miao laughed coldly. I don't know where second young master said, stood us up from. Which one of you made an appointment with him? You guys haven't even met each other, right? What appointment are you talking about? Today's matter is nothing more than your one-sided wishful thinking. Now that the other party didn't come, it's considered as standing us up? Is there such logic in this world? Miao Xiao Miao looked at Zhan Yushu disdainfully. Zhan Yushu, you're actually so familiar with this kind of one-sided wishful thinking. Don't tell me that you always do things like this. Zhan Yushu's face turned red as he said loudly. No matter what, just based on a battle that hasn't even started, you want to determine the winner of this precious bet? This is too much of a joke. We have no intention of going back on our words, but we have to wait until after the battle, right? Only then will it be fair. Miao Xiao Miao laughed coldly. Then I would like to ask, when exactly is the after the battle, that second young master Zhan mentioned? Zhan Yushu, your words are really laughable. Since the other party still hasn't shown up, you guys have already missed the chance to humiliate him. Even if you guys don't want to give up and still want to compete with him, you'll need to find another opportunity. And this opportunity might be tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or next month. If you're unlucky, it might even be next year. It's not impossible. But the bet that I made with your big brother, the quota to enter the spiritual herbal gardens, is going to be decided in 5 days. Zhan Yushu, could it be that you want to use this bet to decide the next 100 years quota? Zhan Yushu's face was flushed red, but he couldn't say a word. Zhan Qingfeng smiled, and helped his brother out of the predicament. Little sister Xiao Miao, although the bet is important, and I will not go back on my words, don't you think that it's a little unfair to determine the winner like this? Miao Xiao Miao was stunned. Looking at the warm smile on Zhan Qingfeng's face, she suddenly felt a chill in her heart. The so-called bet naturally has to have the basic principles of determining the winner. But right now, both parties have not started fighting, and you want to claim the final victory. Haha, little sister Xiao Miao, although I'm usually generous, I'm not to this extent. Zhan Qingfeng laughed bitterly and said. Miao Xiao Miao suddenly felt enraged. Who would have thought that even this was predicted by Mo Junyi? Her original intention of coming here this time was to cancel the bet. With regards to this quota, it meant that she no longer had any hope of obtaining it from the bet. Although she felt a little regretful, she also felt a little gratified. The reason why she brought up the bet was merely to raise the topic, and then use the customer to ask for a few words to cancel the bet so that the Zhan family would owe her a huge favor. Even if they didn't owe her a favor, it would just be a joke, but she had never imagined that before she could say anything, the other party had already started to go back on his words. With Zhan Qingfeng's status as the #1 young master of the Misty Mansion, he actually resorted to sophistry to go back on his words. And he could still act so righteously. There wasn't even the slightest bit of shame in his eyes. Everything was clear, everything was open and aboveboard. He could actually do this? How could he do this? Could it be that he could also take back the words that he had spoken? Going back on his own words, and he could still speak so eloquently. Miao Xiao Miao's heart was instantly filled with disappointment. She couldn't help but think of the words that Mo Junyi had warned her before she left. If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to accept the loss, and the outcome is determined by the heavens. These are all pretty words on the surface. Actually, the key to victory is built on the fact that the other party is extremely powerful or has an absolute advantage. Only then will the other party admit defeat, and admit defeat when the outcome of the bet is clear. But if the interests involved are enough to affect some important factors, it is not impossible for both parties to go back on their words. So I advise Miss Meow not to place too much importance on this bet. In this world, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. 9 out of 10 things in life will not go your way. If you take it to heart too much, it will not be beautiful. It seemed like she had only smiled perfunctorily and left in a hurry back then. In Miao Xiao Miao's eyes, this young Master Mo's literary talent was indeed not ordinary. But to say such words in front of her, with the intention of slandering Zhan Qingfeng, this person's character was a little unbearable. She couldn't help but look down on him a little, and was even a little disappointed. After all, a narrow-minded person, even if he was extremely talented, was not worthy of being on good terms with. But looking at the current situation, that sentence actually made a lot of sense. Things change with the passage of time. What seemed like slandering Zhan Qingfeng at that time was actually extremely prescient now. Right now, the situation could be said to be very clear. But that Zhan Qingfeng still refused to admit defeat. Then, even if Mo Junyi could really defeat all of them, he would still not admit defeat. Just as young Master Mo had said, in the face of benefits, the so-called morals and promises were not even as good as a piece of paper. Not to mention the spiritual herbal gardens, which concerned the safety of the family's prosperity for thousands of years. This was an absolute benefit. But the problem now was that if Zhan Qingfeng lost, he could choose to deny it, and she could not do anything about it. But if she lost in the end, they would definitely not let go, and would definitely use all kinds of methods that they could and could not use to force her to submit. She was a young lady, and just based on the problem of reputation alone, she could not afford to be entangled with them. Miao Xiao Miao could already foresee that if the other party really gained power, they would definitely use this to force her to marry Zhan Yushu. Since they could do such a thing, then what other fantasies could she have about them? Miao Xiao Miao smiled faintly. For some reason, at this moment, there was not much anger rising in her heart. Instead, she thought of Mo Junye's ordinary face and thought to herself, "You're right. I've misunderstood you. It's my bad judgment." Mo Junye was very clear about these matters, and even did not hesitate to give his advice to her, but she had misunderstood him. Miao Xiao Miao suddenly felt very disappointed. No wonder young Master Mo seemed to want to say something, but hesitated. He had naturally thought of my reaction. But after thinking it over, he still said it. If not for that reminder, allowing her to be more or less mentally prepared, she would probably have flown into a rage right now. First, young Master Zhan is indeed resourceful and meticulous. Whether it's a step forward or a step back, you're able to advance and retreat with such ease. I was too naive about the bet earlier. Ha ha. Chapter 938. That Zhan Qingfeng, on the other hand, was rather impressive. Even in the face of Miao Xiao Miao's blatant mockery, he was still able to maintain his composure. Little sister Xiao Miao's words are too serious. I've already said earlier that the bet we agreed on has not even started, so naturally there will not be any result. Since little sister Xiao Miao has suggested to call it quits, then this foolish brother will fulfill little sister's wishes and end this bet. Actually, this is also good. It can avoid harming the friendship between us. From the start, he had been insisting on the words "the bet has not started." His meaning was clear. As long as the bet had not started, then he would not be considered to have gone back on his words. As for before, that was only a verbal agreement. It was not a big deal. Not only that, he even shamelessly claimed that he had sold Miao Xiao Miao a favor and called off the bet. Those who didn't know might even think that he was magnanimous and let her off easily because he had victory in his grasp. As expected, a person without shame is invincible. A faint smile appeared on Miao Xiao Miao's face as she said, "Young Master Zhan is truly magnanimous. This little sister will thank young Master Zhan for showing mercy." If young Master Jean has the chance to spar with that young Master Mo in the future, this little sister wishes young Master Jean a great victory. A trace of anger flashed across Jean Qingfeng's originally warm and handsome face. With his intelligence, how could he not tell that Miao Xiao Miao was intentionally mocking him? But he did not say anything else. No one here was a fool. They all knew that he was in the wrong in this matter. And he had even acted shamelessly after the matter. Now that the other party had said a few words, he could only accept it. Otherwise, he would lose even more face. He could only suppress his anger in his heart and think to himself, "What a sharp-tongued little brat. This young master has no time to bother with you right now, so I'll let you be arrogant for now. Wait till you marry into the Jean family, see how I'll deal with you then. Since the bet has already been called off, this little sister will take her leave." Miao Xiao Miao shook her head and sighed. "Initially I thought that by coming here today, I would be able to watch a good show. I didn't expect the result to be so disappointing. My good mood for so many years has finally been completely destroyed." Miao Xiao Miao's tone was filled with heartfelt disappointment and melancholy. It was so strong that it seemed to have solidified. All these years, she had always thought that although the Jean family was full of profligate young masters, this first young master of the Jean family, and the publicly acknowledged first young master of the Misty Mansion, Jean Qingfeng, was different from the rest. She truly treated him as a big brother. Even the so-called bet the day before yesterday was just a harmless little joke between the two of them, but today, in front of the so-called absolute benefits, Jean Qingfeng's scholarly face had suddenly become so foreign that no one dared to recognize him. And this was Jean Qingfeng's true face. So it turned out that everything from before was merely a method he used to conceal himself. There wasn't a shred of true feelings in it at all. Miao Xiao Miao felt heartbroken from the bottom of her heart. She had always thought of him as a big brother, but in the face of benefits, he could actually betray her so completely. Speaking of which, women were all emotional creatures. No matter how intelligent they were, they could never escape this strange circle that was beyond reason. If one didn't experience it personally, they would never be able to understand the feeling of it. Miao Xiao Miao didn't manage to win the bet that she had clearly won today, but she had seen a person's true face and tasted the bitter fruit of emotions. As for the pros and cons of this, it was up to the individual to decide. Jean Qingfeng pretentiously tried to persuade her to stay, but Miao Xiao Miao insisted on leaving. Young Master Jean also felt that he had lost all face, so he didn't force her to stay. But just as Miao Xiao Miao was about to turn around and leave, a clear and joyful voice rang out. "Ayaya, I heard that all the young masters had set up a banquet to entertain this little brother." Afraid of being rude, this little brother specially went back to change into a new set of clothes and immediately rushed over. "Who would have thought that I would see such a grand occasion? This trip was not in vain. There was really no need for this trip." Following that voice, that legendary free and natural physique prodigy, Mo Junyi, young Master Mo, walked in with a face full of smiles and a face full of flattery. As he looked around at the dazzling array of decorations in the hall, he clicked his tongue in wonder and said in embarrassment, "Ayaya, this standard is really too grand. All the young masters, all the brothers, ha ha ha, actually, as long as everyone shows their sincerity, a simple gesture would do. Why is there a need to tear down the house? This really makes this brother feel very apologetic." A cold glint suddenly shot out from Jean Qingfeng's eyes. He was almost unable to restrain his anger. "If you had come a step earlier, why would I need to be a despicable person in front of Miao Xiao Miao and everyone else? I wouldn't need to go back on my words and swallow back my own words. I could even make use of this country bumpkin to make Miao Xiao Miao lose the bet. Not only would I completely destroy Miao Xiao Miao's hopes of entering the spiritual herbal gardens, I could also make use of this chance to bring the #1 beauty of the Misty Mansion into my harem." After that, I could use this as an opportunity to slowly swallow up the entire Meow family's forces. Just because this bastard had come a step too late, all my plans had become nothing more than an illusion. Right now, this fellow still had a face full of flattery and flattery. This was simply taking advantage of me, and still acting innocent. This was truly intolerable. Intolerable. You are Mo Junyi? I am Zhan Qingfeng, the eldest young master of the Zhan family, and also the one who initiated today's welcoming ceremony. Zhan Qingfeng's gentle demeanor from before was completely gone. His face that was filled with a gentle smile when he was facing Miao Xiao Miao instantly turned into an icy cold expression. It was as if he had gone from spring, when flowers were blooming, to winter, when snow was flying everywhere. A cold glint shot out from his slender eyes as he stared fixedly at June Moxie, like a tiger staring at its prey. All the other young masters were also taking the opportunity to size up this legendary free and natural physique. They couldn't help but feel that it was better to meet him in person than to meet him in person. This brat's appearance was simply too ordinary. He belonged to the type that would be like a piece of carbon thrown into a pile of coal when thrown into a group of people, impossible to find again. It could be summed up in one sentence. Hearing about him in person is not as good as meeting him in person. But this kind of person was actually the legendary free and natural physique? In an instant, the contempt in everyone's hearts increased. Apart from the contempt, there was even more disdain and contempt. Miao Xiao Miao saw that Zhan Qingfeng's expression seemed to have suddenly put on another mask, and the surrounding temperature also seemed to have dropped a few degrees. She couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. I wonder how many layers of masks this number 1 young master of the Misty Mansion has on? A faint sense of fear suddenly rose in her heart. Apart from being emotional, girls also had another characteristic. Their thoughts were always very direct and even very subjective. When she saw a good person, then no matter what, no matter how he handled things, it would all be good. However, if there came a day when this person suddenly changed her impression of him, then all her previous efforts would instantly turn into an illusion. No matter what that person did after that, it would be extremely detestable, no different from a pile of stinky dog shit. She would even suspect everything that she had experienced in the past. Could it all be a scam set up by that person? Therefore, some brothers would often inexplicably fall out of love, and when they met again, the other party would simply be gnashing their teeth even more than the enemy, looking at them with contempt and disdain, while they themselves would be confused, completely not knowing how they had offended their former beloved. Actually, this was a very normal thing. Women often didn't even understand the thoughts of themselves, much less men who weren't women. However, when Miao Xiao Miao saw that Mo Junyi Mo Dashao had a look of shock and fear on his face, she almost burst out laughing. This fellow's acting skills were really good at acting like a dragon and acting like a tiger. He really looked like whatever he was acting, truly imitating it to perfection. That expression was like a country bumpkin who had suddenly entered a big city and obtained the recognition of a big shot. It was the kind of expression that a country bumpkin would have when he was acting. 10,000 points of acting skills. Yes, Big Brother is Mo Junyi, the owner of the free and natural physique. The legend in your hearts. Everyone, you don't have to be too envious. Even if you are envious, you won't be able to obtain it. This Mo Junyi seemed to have wanted to keep a low profile at the start, but for some reason, he changed his mind. It was as if he felt that he was already on the same level as these people, or even a head higher. He couldn't help but be pleased with himself and immediately corrected his mistake. Not only did his tone become more arrogant, he even started to call himself Big Brother. In the end, he even started to speak incoherently, directly reaching an extremely arrogant level. All the young masters were infuriated by the words of this country bumpkin. It wasn't that they hadn't seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen someone as arrogant as this. This Mo Junyi was really an arrogant person. To think that the legendary free and natural physique would actually fall into the hands of this kind of person. The heavens were simply blind awe. But young Master Mo's next sentence almost caused Zhang Qingfeng to faint from anger. But Zhang Qingfeng, that young Master Zhang, this. He had a difficult expression on his face. What is it? Zhang Qingfeng suppressed the rage in his heart. Young Master Zhang, it seems like you haven't been doing very well in the Misty Mansion, right? I can tell that when you announced your name earlier, you were very proud, as if you felt that you were very famous. Actually, I can understand your feelings. Young Master Mo shrunk back a little and said embarrassedly. Ever since I came to the Misty Mansion, I've basically met all the important people. Some especially important ones. Holy Emperor Chao would also specially point them out. So this little brother has a very deep impression of all these important people. But I don't think I've heard of young Master Zhang's name. Looks like you haven't been doing very well in the Misty Mansion, right? Is it similar to how I am outside? Everyone is not doing very well. It's really hard to make a living in the world now. I pity you, really, from the bottom of my heart. Now that I've finally made a name for myself, I can definitely protect you. Do you understand what I mean? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.